Call the meeting to order, the Griggs County Commission, 2:30 on June 7th, 2019. Time for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, roll.
I ran over it with the tractor. Got 86.
John.
Present.
Dale.
Here.
Mark.
Here.
Sean. Troy's here. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
Approve the agenda as presented.
Been moved by Dale to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mark. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we want to look at the minutes from the special meeting on May 24th when the bid opening.
Move to approve the May 24th special minutes and dispense with reading.
It's been moved by Dale to approve the minutes of the special meeting on May 24th and dispense with the reading. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mark. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And now the regular meeting on May 24th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and dispense with the reading.
It's been moved by Mark to approve the minutes to the regular meeting on May 24th and dispense with the reading. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bills.
There was one that got added, John Deere Financial for $533.33, and also a intercommunity telephone company for $150.
I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Was there anything that I missed?
Nope.
Anybody have any questions on the bills?
make a motion to approve the bill
With the addition of,
with the addition of the two.
yes, John Deere Financial and Intercommunity Telephone Company.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Sean to approve the bills with the 2 additional vouchers. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Office reports. Anybody have any questions on the office reports?
I'm glad to see that the sheriff provided the all of this, but I think I requested mileage in the vehicles, a daily log of the vehicle mileage with total mileage and mileage to date.
Okay.
And then I suppose that we should, to compare that, we should have a list of the hours that the officers worked, duty hours, time and date. Should be just off the time card.
Anything else? Hey, Alan. Good.
I think I'm reloading the office reports as presented.
One thing it isn't as windy there normally.
Pardon?
Move to approve the office reports as presented.
It's been moved by Sean to approve the monthly office reports. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Wayne?
We have quite a few things to discuss on County Road 26. I did contact Dahl Consultants to do a hydraulic study on the 2 crossings on County Road 26. And we have that study and an invoice for $1,000. We can run that through the project and get reimbursed. His suggestion was to put in 2 36-inch by 60-foot culverts in the crossing to the west. That's the one where the water is standing there all spring.
You're talking about way on the west end?
Way on the west end there.
Okay.
According to meet the 25-year flood study,
Okay.
that's what's required, ADCFS.
Okay.
And then the one on the east, just over the hill from the elevator, he said it didn't require a 24-inch, it could be a smaller one, but I don't like to put anything smaller than a 24-inch,
Right.
otherwise they plug up. So we have that hydraulic study to add to the project.
Okay.
Maybe have copies of that if everybody, you guys want
The hydraulic study?
Yeah.
Are we smart enough to read it?
It's pretty short, it's pretty good. I think so. You guys are
loaded
professionals.
I mean, I believe, Wayne stamped it, I believe it. Or John or whoever did.
So then there was, to the project was a, what did you call it? addition than
What's in that now?
in there now. I think it might be a 36.
Just one? Okay.
There's still water there.
Well, can it get away?
It doesn't run away.
So somebody has,
Slowly.
the township needs to clean their ditch or something?
I think there's a slough there. I just looked on Google Earth or one of those mapping sites, and I followed along, and when you get to the end of the water of that first slough where there's open water, there's a foot higher elevation up there. So that can't all run out of there unless it's so high.
So the culverts are gonna sit water?
Pardon?
Are the culverts going to sit water then?
Probably, unless it dries up.
Well, that won't work.
I did question that, unless the water board can get permission, it's in the wetlands, you gotta try to clean that out. I haven't gone out there, it's too wet to look, see if it is a beaver dam or if it's just silted in from cattails and stuff.
Does that ever empty out completely there?
I think it can.
Yeah, with that, right before the mill, that slough.
So I questioned, well, I said it isn't
Just
gonna run
about
out
that.
anyway, but according to meet the standards that they want, you have to put that side.
No, well, I don't either, but
I just don't wanna install those culverts so they sit water all the time. It wrecks them.
how much usually sits in them?
I don't, that's what I'm asking.
That's
I have no
what-
idea. I don't know if I've ever even been there.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, the culvert on the end of County Road 26 there, Ellen.
Yeah,
Oh, so they're recommending that we put 236s in there before we gravel that road. And I asked Wayne if that water ever leaves down there, because we don't really want to put culverts in there that are going to sit with water in them all the time.
most of the time it does.
It
Does what?
leaves or sits with water?
They get dry in that summer.
Yeah. We've advised the county to put a culvert in there 5 years ago when that road was first gravelled. And it hasn't been done yet.
That's not the question. We're going to put 236s in there. Can we put them in there so they don't sit water all the time? Because that ruins them.
In order to get the flow of water to go through more to the south, you're gonna have to take some dirt away from the ditch on the side there, because that holds it back on the ditch. And if you're gonna put 236s there, then what are you gonna put on the end of the Dover and Bartley then?
Don't know. I didn't do the hydrology study. I mean, does
in the
it-
hydrology studies, that doesn't
Is there downstream
seem
considerations?
to matter.
Yeah. There's been an extra culvert put in there between south of Esslingers there, because of the road went underwater at one time.
No, I mean, does the hydrology study take that into account? The downstream?
Century code doesn't. It's just, it has to pass that and they don't worry about what's downstream.
Well, that's not very neighborly.
No,
This
it
would be
doesn't make
similar
any-
to the
Nice neighbor.
Pickerel Lake stream, you know?
Who's doing the
Put in a big
hydrology
box
study?
culvert.
Well, an engineering firm did it already.
Right, but
It's already done.
But the requirements are in Century, North Dakota Century Code. So we don't have a choice. You can always go bigger than what they say, but you can't go smaller without potential for.
Well, the water that comes.
Yeah, but if
from
you
the
go
north.
smaller than what they recommend, it only affects the county from a liability standpoint if there's residential buildings or above that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'd just be upstream landowners would have the complaint.
Right.
Is there just a ridge in the ditch?
Yeah,
And if you put two in, downstream landowners are gonna have a complaint.
In that.
Right, but they don't have it all stand on if they're meeting the Century Code requirements.
it isn't that much.
So even if you wash the road out down below because we put in two culverts rather than one,
I don't like this discussion.
yeah, we don't have,
Of course we do. And any land downstream of where we put the culvert in, if we don't make it a clear path all the way to the drainage, we're liable. It's a catch-22. It's either or.
The elevation is such a slow drop. You know, it just doesn't just flow out of it.
Sure.
It just fills up and keeps, keeps going. And it's not just the ditch, you know, that Alan was talking about. It's, you'd have to dig out into the slough, and then you'd have to dig out over the other end. You know, maybe that's something that could be addressed by the water board. You know, but
Well, we had KLJ do it quite a few years ago, and I think there's less than a foot drop from the Hannaford Road down to the Bartley Township Dover Road, going north and south there. It's flat.
So the water's not gonna move very fast, no matter what.
Do you remember what the recommendation was at that time, Alan?
We were gonna try to get a legal drain. Didn't go.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay, well, I guess by century code, we're gonna have to put 236s in there, but if there's no drop, it isn't gonna move it any faster anyway. Okay,
So, we talked to
But
Tom Goverson.
The drainage from the north takes off of about, maybe you've done that with your hydrology, but there's at least 5 sections or more parts of it that drains through that, where you're talking about putting those culverts in there. There's 2 different runs that go in there.
I think we run into a liability issue when we change the size of the existing culverts.
Absolutely. So if we don't have a liability issue right now when we have the existing culverts in there,
Exactly.
and we put a bigger culvert in there, now we're gonna have a liability problem. Unless we take it all the way down to the drain. But it's gotta cross private property between there and wherever it gets to the drain, right, Alan?
Well, no, from the Bartley Township Road, that separates Bartley and Dover,
Yep.
going east, that's all been improved.
Okay.
We did all that here several years ago. But where it ends up then is in slough,
Right,
wildlife slough west of the Palmer.
right.
Yeah.
And we can't do anything through that slough, correct?
No, you can do it from the outlet.
Right.
That's been improved a couple of times. It
Right.
probably needs cleaning again.
But through it, we can't, yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question? And this would be a Scott, or Paul, would it help if we raised the elevation a little bit of that culvert so they didn't sit in the water as much, or will that affect things to the north? I have no idea, I'm just asking a question.
I guess I didn't look at the contours
Okay.
all that close. I mean, we went through it on the phone and we went through the LiDAR contours, but yeah, I don't know if we get it. I don't think you'd wanna change the elevation just for,
Well, and at some point in time, that culvert, all it does is become an equalization culvert. As the water drops on one side or the other, it's just there to equalize. And it won't equalize very well once it's in the water. As much as I hate to put them in the water, because as you say, they don't last as long, they aren't the old ones, I think
Using a real heavy gauge on these, none of this matters to me, but the culverts are real 10 and 12, those would be 10 gauge culverts, right?
Right.
Yep, and the life of them, even in the water, is gonna be, what, 3-4 times as long as the 16 sitting in water? So there's the one positive side of it, if they sit in water.
Yeah.
But none of this matters to,
Well, at the time, the road was built, I mean, they were put in at that elevation.
Do we need a motion to put these 2 culverts in, or is this just part of the plan?
well, yeah, so,
There's a change order here.
It's a change.
It's a change
Yeah.
order.
right. So I guess we can kinda walk through that. Have you guys acted on the construction contract already?
no.
Okay, and that, you brought the signed contract from your bond?
I've
right?
got everything here, I hope it's all the right stuff for you.
Okay. Well, Jamie's not here, okay. So I think that'd be the first step, would be to approve the construction contract and the bonds for part of that.
Last year, you couldn't hardly get a pickup and 4-wheel drive through that road. But this year, I know, I think they rerouted a lot of the fertilizer tender trucks and everything, so they didn't go over there. The last year was in tough shape.
Two on Paul? Is that what you need from me?
That'd be good, I guess. One for the,
What else do you need from me? I more than likely have it.
you have the, okay, the bond.
Those
You
bolts.
have the signed construction contracts?
Uh, Is that 520? One?
Yeah. Let's see. Owner and contract, yep,
Right?
yep.
And you need a, I think you need the certificate of liability,
Yep.
okay? And that, I think, is the end of what I have with me. Unless, oh, wait, there's another, you need two certificates of liability?
They're not original, so it doesn't matter, but I guess we can keep them with it. If you got an extra.
All right. I've got one other question if I can. Have they established where the culverts are gonna be?
Where the existing ones are now.
Where are you gonna,
Where they are?
where they are now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess we had some discussion about how far, if they put two in, how far apart to put them, but basically they have to be at least a foot and a half apart, but they can be as, you can put them further so you can get them in between. Yeah, Tom and I had talked about it.
We've discussed the distance between them, and we want to make sure that there's enough for compaction, right? Paul?
Yeah, yeah.
We need good compaction.
Put clay in there?
It's
These are gravel all the way up.
it's all class 5, the whole. I can maybe show you. Maybe not.
We're doing a fill out the rest of the, who signs, because they.
You looking for the thermostat?
Well, the heat thing looked like it was
I don't
on.
need this one?
No, I didn't fill out the rest of the print, the name.
I turned it down once.
Who Griggs did, and
I'm trying to find the remote for that AC unit.
Print my name
Or, yeah, your name and then,
under here.
yep. Yep, the body there is supposed to be
Okay.
printed name. Did you look at their bonds and insurance stuff? No?
You're ready to work
And then
on
the
this.
same for the name and title of the person who witnessed there.
Howdy, name and title. I don't think he has a title.
even see it come in.
Work for you or somebody else?
Oh, he works part-time for us.
You can just put,
Employee?
yeah. That's fine.
It's like there's no power to it.
Do I need to buy two there?
The printed name, yeah.
Anyway, you need us to act on that short form first? Or is it all,
Right, because you need to sign the original contract before you can approve a change order.
are there any questions on the short form of agreement between the engineer and owner? sign?
What page are you approving right now?
24 to 31. 30.
This is one of the same. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Just the new, I think all these are higher than what we paid for insurance. That's what we normally do. Yeah, that's great.
Do you have any idea, Wayne, what kind of shape the culverts that are in there are? If they're shot or if they're,
I think that, we already knew that
We knew
that
it is
culvert
shot.
needed to be
It is
replaced.
shot.
Yeah.
okay?
There we go.
I'll move we accept the short term of agreement between owner and engineer for professional services.
It's been moved by John to accept the short form of agreement between owner and engineer for professional services. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion?
John
John?
seconded it.
John, seconded by John.
There's no place to put the floor.
Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale? Mark?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries.
I don't know if they're gonna have it to do it or not.
I think we're good with the bonds and stuff here.
We don't need to approve this stuff, do we?
I actually have a copy that's all flagged up, ready for you.
I have a right drawing for it here.
That's for the chip seal one? Yeah, that's the DOT one. Alright, so the green ones are yours.
So this one starts,
31.
Yeah. 37. Yeah, 37 in your book, there is this, the DOT contract. That's for the chip seal project.
there we go. The next one starts on page 37. That's the chip seal contract.
And the only thing that I don't know was the source of local match.
That isn't fair.
It's what?
Local road fund,
Local road fund, was that?
Samantha,
Excuse me, sorry, what?
what did we put down for the local match? It was, road fund, I think, the road.
Yep.
Is that what you call it, road fund or road and bridge or?
Yeah, it's just road fund.
It's a county road fund?
Yeah, yep.
Could be. That's probably close enough for them. So all the pink ones are your witnesses and all the green ones are Troy's.
You got it.
Spots here.
Oh, this one needs to be signed, or
That's just an extra copy of the bonds, the construction contract, I didn't flag that, but it's, right there. Oops. Go back a little bit. There you go.
that next contract, starting on page 37, is the construction engineering services agreement for LPA federal aid project, and that's the chip seal south of Sutton
Yeah, 36.
Yeah, through something.
through Sutton. Oh yeah, that 8 miles, 8.57 miles, going from Highway 200 south through Sutton. Are there any questions?
And the reason that one's on the DOT format agreement is it's got 80.92% federal match and then 19.07 local. So you had to go through and you guys did the RFP and we interviewed and went through the whole process.
Any questions on the chip seal project?
Make a motion to approve.
Been moved by Mark to approve the construction engineering services agreement for the chip seal project going through Sutton. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Next, Wayne?
Did you guys already act on the engineering, got a construction engineering sorry, Gilbertson's contract?
Thought we approved that at the last meeting. Didn't we?
Pending engineer.
Oh,
Yeah, and Jamie and I just
Approved
looked at
the
it, so
change
it was
order.
good. Okay.
so you guys have, well, it was pending engineer's approval. You approved it, so it should be done, right?
Okay. Well, and usually you wouldn't have the bonds reviewed by your Jamie and I just looked it over at the meeting, so it should be good.
Okay.
Okay. And I guess the next one for us would be the short form of agreement between professional or owner and engineer for construction engineering on the Hannaford Road.
Thought we did that first.
Oh, you did already. Yep, okay. I was looking at the contract, sorry. Alright, then the next thing would be change order number 1 for Gilbertson then, that's where the culverts are.
Were they in the packet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, yeah.
35.
Okay.
Page 35, 34.
And then, did you get a chance to read that over, or you got it? Perfect. We did a few things different on this than we normally would have for culverts. DOT spec, standard drawing, the contractor would normally include the unit prices for the backfill material in that culvert price, and this one we're actually just gonna pay for it by the time. That way you're just paying for the culvert, and then the contractor doesn't have that risk of how much material it's gonna take. You just take what it takes.
Okay.
So with that means that we'd be taking the only thing that's bad about that is then we're on site with the tickets, well, the whole time, which usually you'd be there anyway, but it's, that means you have to be, basically. And Tom and I went through and Tom came up with some quantities and we came up with part of it and came up with the list of what's the second page of that change order.
So the change order amounts to $49,772.
Right, yeah, just for construction, yeah.
The description is culverts will be replaced at 2 locations within the project. Backfill will be monitored but not density tested. Backfill and cofferdam materials will be paid by the ton, not incidental to the culverts.
Right, and that's what I was talking about, with paying for the gravel, instead
Okay.
of including it. And you can see on the second page that his pipe prices are, for just the pipe and weighing it. And then there's, other prices for the gravel and everything that go on top of them. And these pipe prices are, probably less than half what a DOT job would be because it doesn't include the gravel.
Okay. Any questions on the change order number 1?
We have to put in 2,
No.
and we can put in just 1.
Well, to meet century code, you have to put in 2. And that was one of the things that Brian Fuchs at DOT mentioned that we needed to do is if we're gonna replace culverts, that we need to look at the size. And that's what we did.
Putting two in, according to Century Code, it limits the liability of the county from the upstream landowners. That's the difference between putting one in and putting two in, or if the DOT pulls the funding if we don't do it. I don't know if they would do that, but
Usually we always had trouble if we changed things, not left things alone.
There was a county that put the original size culvert back in. Big heavy rain came, flooded the farmer
upstream.
upstream. Put in a complaint, suit. Court favored with him because they didn't do a hydraulic study to see how much area comes into that.
Right. But the same thing could happen from the downstream landowner, I would think.
Well, and I guess Jamie would probably know more about that. For if we meet Century Code and put in what's the minimum requirement, the downstream, we don't really have a leg to stand on, do they?
From my experience, it kind of stinks for the downstream person because the upstream, it appears that the upstream individual has, if there's not a proper size culvert in there and they're flooded, the upstream person has the ability to sue. But I don't know, I don't understand why the downstream person doesn't have any remedy, but from the way the code reads, from the stream crossing studies, it doesn't appear that the downstream person has any ability for recourse, which
Okay.
personally I don't agree with, but that's kind of what happens.
If the road wasn't there, that water was coming.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's what the hydrology studies are there for, is,
Well, that's
is to
logic.
study
yeah.
that
Road
the
can't act as a
hold
dam.
water.
No, I agree.
So,
Okay.
okay, any other questions?
Then the change order gives, the contractor asks for 8 days of.
We need to act on this one way or the other.
I'll make a motion, we approve the change order number 1.
Been moved by Sean to approve change order number 1. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries.
Okay. Then I guess the next thing then would be, the amendment to the engineer-owner agreement to do the inspection on the culvert installation.
Is that in here? I don't.
That I didn't get in the packet. I've got it here.
Isn't there 2 change orders too? Or just one?
Just one,
Okay.
there could be a second one, I guess that was the thing we wanted to.
Thought we were gonna put on a little more gravel or something.
Yep, that's the one.
Okay.
So there's a spreadsheet in there that has our estimate of hours to monitor that work. And since there's, contractor asked for 8 days of road closure to put those culverts in. And we also have to test the gravel that will go in there, the class 5 part of it anyway. And that's all spelled out in the scope of work there. It's just 2 short pages.
But this has got to, hopefully this is the worst case scenario.
Right, definitely.
If they get it done in 2 days, I hope it doesn't cost this much.
Yeah, no, it's not a lump sum, it's hourly.
Okay. Any other questions?
You pass all the change orders in one motion?
There's only one
Is that
change
the only
order.
one that's left?
We're not
Even the
gonna-
gravel, even the adding of the gravel?
We're not there yet because we don't know what
Okay.
we're gonna end up doing.
I make a motion to approve this change order.
This is an amendment to the engineer-owner agreement.
Yeah.
Been moved by Mark to approve the amendment to the engineer-owner agreement. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Mark? Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries.
Then you got the invoice from Bell Consulting. That's the last, or is that the next meeting? Right, because we wanted to, I guess we want to get most of the reimbursements submitted with that, and I guess I did include that on the draft of it, that's good.
Yeah, I think it was. That wasn't submitted into the bills.
I think we could still,
It's too late to submit the Dahl Consulting.
That's for the hydraulic study for that project?
second part, be part of the project cost, or?
Yeah, if we do it as part of the project, then we get reimbursed for it.
This is for both crossings.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know how they did that cheap, but they're.
They're good. I like them. Where are
It
they?
works.
Where are they?
I'm not asking too many questions, they get it for that price.
This is a 25-year hydrology study in 2 locations along that road. One is right west of the elevator and the other one's on the west end of the project, and the invoice is for $1,000. Got any questions?
You need a motion to pay that? I said
Moved by Dale to approve the payment to Dahl Consultants for the hydrology studies. Or second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John? Dale?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Next thing is a funding reimbursement request to the state DOT. And this is for the graveling project west of Hannaford, this thing we've been talking about all day here.
Including the change order.
Including the change order, the hydrology study,
Engineer.
and the additional engineering cost, for a total of $540,581.15. Is there a motion to approve this request?
I so move.
Been moved by Dale that we submit this funding reimbursement request to the state of North Dakota. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carried.
And with that, the Senate Bill 2103 balance that the county still has available for reimbursement was 119,295.97. Fund 76 funds were 423,239.04, so it was 542,535.01 that was available. That's so there's still, even with this reimbursement request, there'd be about $1,953.86 that have not been requested. The final payment on the bridge or the box culvert project from last year, the local share of that would be $986.48, but the contractor has not signed the final estimate yet, so we can't request that yet. So I guess to use the remainder, or to spend the remaining funds, I guess my suggestion would be just to add, I guess I thought the simplest thing I thought would be to add another 300 tons of gravel to the project for putting over soft spots that aren't soft enough that we need to dig them out. You know, like if you wanted to have a 2-inch lift over 1,000 foot wide, 1,000 foot long, 26 feet wide, that would add $3,200 to the contract. And that wouldn't affect our engineering because it would be included in our testing of gravel. Only 300 tons, so that wouldn't be a big deal that way. That way we would expend all the funds, or be able to. You know, and I'm guessing that our construction engineering is probably gonna come in under also, probably both for the construction and for the change order, so you wanna have a little bit of a buffer there to make sure you don't have to write a check back to the state when this is all done.
Right.
So how much were we trying to spend?
542, and we came up with 540 after the change order that was discussed at the last.
So $1,900 remaining,
Yep.
but you wanna spend 3,000 to cover the 1,900?
Well, or we can make it work out to that amount too. Brian kinda cautioned us against that, just because you're gonna have underruns in other areas.
Oh,
But, and that doesn't make too much difference. I mean, you can do it that way and then just keep putting gravel down and, you know, it just takes a little bit. And we're gonna have to do that anyway. We're gonna have to monitor the quantities to make sure it gets used up. Especially with our, you know, more than likely we're gonna be under a few $100 on, or more on construction engineering between the regular.
so we need to approve that today?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's really tight. I guess I just didn't want to get too far ahead. I didn't know for sure if the culvert change order was gonna be what you guys wanted for sure or not, and then, lost my train of thought.
We still have to request reimbursement by vote.
Cause you're gonna have to present us with another change order before we can make that call, right?
Right, so I guess I just want to get a little more, since we hadn't discussed what that change order should be, I figured I should probably ask you guys what you want it to be.
Right.
Well, we want it to be equal in product to the amount of money we have remaining to
But we won't know that.
access. We won't know that until we get to the end, so there's no
Right.
use discussing it. No.
Well, except that we have to have the.
We'll run out of
reimbursement
time though, John. We gotta request it before we get there.
I know, but wouldn't we request the $1,900 then, and then make it fit?
We could, I mean, we can just adjust the length of that patch
Okay,
to do that, or, I mean, if you guys wanna have an area where we might have a 3-inch lift or 2-inch lift, or, I mean, rather than digging out, is that a reasonable approach to that, or what's your thought to it? And I guess Tom might be part of that discussion too, what your thought to that would be, as far as what you want to have for an option, for basically an overlay patch on gravel.
Doesn't matter,
Okay.
whatever you suggest, whatever works.
I think what John was asking, it's okay, we have $1,900 left out of the estimates.
Yeah.
So your construction comes in at $10,000, or your engineering on that change order, instead of 14,000.
Yeah.
Can we request the 1,900 and spend that 4,000 on gravel, or do we have to request 5,900 for gravel for the change order?
You got up to, I think it's 15 or 25%, I can't remember which spec we're under the contract that you can overrun. So
Okay.
we can go, we don't have to do a separate change order to put more gravel on.
So then
The
we
only
should just
reason
do
we're
a
doing-
change order for that $1,900 and make sure it fits
Right,
whatever's left. It doesn't matter.
yeah, right, we can
Okay.
come up with an explanation for that would work.
Okay,
The only thing is that we're probably gonna, I mean, say if everything else comes out right at the contract amount, and that's the reason we're doing this now, rather than using the contract fluctuation or whatever to cover that amount, is that you can request reimbursement based on contract amounts with this set of funding. So we need to do, that's why we need to have a change order. You wouldn't need it otherwise
okay.
to do that little extra work. But we still have that other reimbursement out there too, that 986.48 that's gonna come through eventually for the box culvert.
Right.
So does that have to be subtracted from the 1,900?
It should be, but since we can't request reimbursement on that yet, I couldn't put it in there.
Oh, I know, but if it's gonna come through, then we have to subtract that from the 1,900, so we have that money there when the reimbursement does come through, correct?
Except that unless it doesn't come through before the end of the month. Because we have to have everything in before the end of the month. And the DOT, their fiscal year end is June 30th, so they shut their payment system down like June 25th. I talked to the DOT this morning. So,
Why isn't that?
Has anybody picked up the phone and asked the contractor for the invoice?
I haven't yet, but I will.
Good thinking.
So I think it'd be tight, but I think we could act on that at the next meeting. if
Okay.
needed.
Thanks.
Okay.
Brian's trying to get it to work.
Not real well.
Jamie, I was wondering if, the title and everything was clear on the property in Binford for the Binford project. If that's been
I don't know, we haven't gotten an abstract back yet. Abstract
get filed for an abstract. Okay.
We're gonna get an abstract built.
It was requested 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, but we haven't gotten it back yet, so.
Okay.
But we have title of the property. We have a deed.
Yeah,
Correct. Right.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So theoretically, then we could move forward with preparing the site.
Oh.
Just sign.
Unless there's defects.
Yeah, I don't know, I think we should wait until we get.
You're gonna have Travis do a title opinion?
I have.
Yeah.
He can probably do that without the abstract or not?
Should we just,
Well, I suppose he could, but you have to, one of us would have to
Come to the courthouse.
come to the courthouse, or Jennifer could do it, I suppose, and get all the entries for it. I
Okay.
could do that, I could talk to Jennifer about getting all those entries this week and getting in to Travis.
I know there's questions in Binford about, when we were gonna start on the project. If we're gonna,
Only before we spend money on putting a building up, we wanna make sure that there aren't any title defects, so.
Okay, anything else, Wayne?
we could probably talk about the gravel a little bit. We had gravel tests were taken of the windrow and of the pit and received back. The only thing is, they didn't check whether the silt was clay or sand.
Tom stepped out, he probably shouldn't have getting involved.
So I requested them to do a hydrometer test on the fines to find out exactly what the fines were. And that's where the situation is yet. We don't have a solution completely yet, but
Have you gotten that back? That hydrology test? Okay.
But the gravel in the windrow didn't test the same as the pile, or did test the
it's
same?
a little bit different than what the pile was.
Okay,
But it looked like his opinion at Terracon was that there should be more rock and stuff in the higher numbers, maybe to take down that PI, that clay.
I mean, that's what it looked like to me, just driving the road.
Yeah, that's what I agree.
But I don't know much about gravel, other than I don't like sinking in it that much when I'm driving on it.
It's good. Just leave
So
the
we're
road.
still working on it.
Leave the windrow, I don't care if the road's pretty good.
If
So we
somebody
haven't
didn't
had
want a
rain
windrow-
really on it. It'd be interesting if it rains tonight or tomorrow,
Then we'll see.
just to
Yeah.
see what the old base.
Well, and the problem is, you got a windrow there to hold the water on the road. That's not gonna go well either.
This way it'll run out.
I don't remember he cut notches in it, I don't think he did. But
Yeah, he did.
I think he did.
Yeah, it's one of those spots that should run out.
Okay,
It still needs a remedy to it.
Yeah.
so we're not
We're gonna
there
remedy
yet.
it, but not today.
Okay, so is that
It's
it
been
then?
pretty good right now, so.
Yeah, I think that's,
Okay. You went over your time, so that's gonna cost you a little.
okay.
No overtime.
penalty is you have to sit through the whole equalization.
There you go.
Wayne, did you need me for anything?
I just discussed, we took the samples to Terracon and we got the samples back and they're still working on the hydrometer tests, so see if we can, and they're gonna help us try to figure out a solution for what we have to do.
You don't need me anymore? Then
We're good.
I have to go pick up parts in
Okay.
Fargo by 5, so.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks,
I
Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tom.
Thank you all much.
Thanks, Tom.
Alan, you take care.
You got to speed, but I got to talk to you. I think that's floor.
Hmm?
That'd be there by 5, you better floor it. Is yours?
I know everyone missed me, so I better.
We're gonna stop at the airport.
There's that change order. He might have signed the other copy, but this one has our other 2 signatures.
Okay. You just need Troy's, right?
Yep. Yep, and actually we should probably put that cover on one of the other ones, because that back sheet's cut off.
Okay.
Next thing on the agenda is tax equalization. I presume that's why some of you township guys are here.
I looked back in the minutes and you recessed the regular meeting and enter into tax equalization.
I guess we should go into recess and then reconvene in the tax equalization meeting.
I make a motion to recess the regular county commission meeting.
Second.
Been moved by John, seconded by Sean, that we go into recess. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Call the tax equalization meeting to order. Griggs County Tax Equalization Board, June 7th, 2019 at 3:25. David?
In your commissioner packet there, I've sent you the recommendations that I have.
So have you read chapter 5712?
Yep.
Okay.
It asks gives the power of the county board of equalization to equalize between township or assessment districts.
No, the agenda is set by the century code. So the first thing on the agenda must be the equalization of assessments of property assessed by the city boards of equalization.
You want to
No.
go to the city first?
That's what the governor said we gotta do. Yep.
Uh,
But it also says the chairman of each city board of equalization or chairman's appointed representative and each city assessor must be present at such meeting during the first order of business. So I don't know what exactly we ought to do, because I clearly think there are issues with what was done, and I don't know how we can all get on the same page if there's not more people present at this meeting. And the century code demands it. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I'm aware of what the century code says. And
Okay.
last year I think only Allen was the only
Yeah, I
township
know.
chairman here. The year before, I don't know when the last county equalization meeting was, when all 20 representatives from each township were here.
Maybe never,
So
you know.
we don't have a county equalization meeting.
Well, we have to,
Okay.
but we don't have to come to a conclusion today. We can go into recess and reconvene at some point in the future. but I think we need more assessors here for sure, and certainly some people from individual taxing districts. Because there was these giant changes made that, in my opinion, if they were approved by the board, would unequalize the taxes in the county, not equalize them.
And it's up to the township board to approve any changes in value.
What's that?
It's up to the township board to approve any
It's
changes
the
that the
Board of
assessors.
County Equalization. The County Board of Equalization approves the changes.
At this point, yes. In April, when there's a township board, all the township boards met and approved or rejected or amended any of the changes that their assessors made.
That's exactly right. But they weren't privy to the information from the other counties. That's why you have a meeting that everybody attends.
So in the powers and duties of the county director of tax equalization, the county director of tax equalization has the power, duty, responsibility to call upon and confer with assessors in the county, and the authority to require attendance at meetings to promote uniform assessment of all real property. So one of your duties was to have the assessors here so that we could ask them the questions and to have all the information that was gathered in the determination for these assessments, and I don't see any of that. You did the work of the districts, the equalization right up there. The first work of equalization is the districts, the townships, the towns, the cities, and the special districts. And they equalize the property amongst themselves. Different tracts of property so that every property in that district, whether it be a township or town, is equalized. From there, it goes to the county level. The county equalizes the townships against each other, the whole township. And from there, it goes to the state, and the state equalizes the counties against each other. We're right now in the county portion of it, and we're supposed to start with the different units. We're supposed to start with the cities and the towns first. We don't have the information to do that, nor the people that did that here in order to determine what to do. And there's no way that we can use the information that we've been given, because it is obviously would unequalize the taxation rates between townships in the county. So you would have one township. Here's an example. We have some townships that have 240% increase in valuations over another township. So say we have a home in one of these townships that had a 240% increase, and we have another one up in the township that didn't change. And they're both identical homes, and they're both priced the same. Guess what? Now this home that has the 240% increase, now it has the burden of additional taxes to whoever owns it. It also has the burden when he or she sells it at a reduced value, because now we have made it more expensive to own that property. For what purpose? No purpose. The purpose of equalization is just that. It is not to raise valuations, it's to equalize amongst the different entities, the districts. We had that done. Because last year, we approved the equalization process. The year before, we approved it. It's not on a yearly basis. We can't approve this. How do you account for having those raises when the other townships decided not to?
How? For example, we have Broadview Township and Sverdrup that are right next to each other. I served as a local assessor for Sverdrup. When I began the tax director position, there's only one remaining certified assessor in the county. If the state had changed education requirements, and so there were a lot of townships had lost their assessor. If a township is unable to find an assessor, it's up to the tax director to either assess it themselves or help a township find an assessor. I was able to look outside the county and find assessors to cover most of the townships. I couldn't find for the remaining 7 townships. At that point, I came to the county commission to ask whether I should assess them as county tax director or as local assessor. The commission said I would do it as a local assessor. So Sverdrup was one of them where I did the assessment. When I gathered the assessment books for Sverdrup, I had no information to go on. All I had was one number that's entered in the assessment book. The previous assessor either didn't have or couldn't locate their assessment records in terms of how they had reached their valuations. And I raised this issue with the Sverdrup board that I really had nothing to go on to make what the assessments were. So over the course of last summer and fall, I went out, took measurements, gathered the property characteristics, and using the property data came up with new assessments. I really had, if a property taxpayer, the county or the state were to ask how the previous valuation was reached, I would have no clue. It's a number that's entered in the assessment book. We have to assume that it was accurate at some point, but there's no underlying data to support. It's one number with no context. So I gathered the property data.
Did you look at any deeds?
Deed, yep. I've collected. Now, not all deeds have sales information, but as many as I could, I have the sales information on the properties.
We don't have any of this information, how this was done.
Okay, I can provide you the sales information if that's what the commission needs. I think you'll see in most cases, in the vast majority of cases, the sales price of the property, no matter when it happened, is far below what the current assessment is. So at equalization 2019, for example, with Sverdrup, I proposed the changes that I had reached, what I believe the market value to be, as Century Code says, all assessors are to place values at market value, what they believe the market value to be. The township board approved those changes, and that's where we're at here today. Broadview, I've discussed this with Dale. I don't believe their assessor attended the meeting. Their assessor has not collected any property information, and values were approved at 2020. So that's the difference between assessment districts. Is one, at Sverdrup, the assessor went out and collected and made assessments on the property. The districts where there were no changes, the assessor did not make an assessment, did not do what the assessment is required to do. So that's the difference between them.
That still doesn't answer the fact that once we're at this point, how do we equalize the county?
How you could start to do it. Century Code says it's the intent of the legislature that assessors, that local boards of equalization look at sales ratio studies to begin what those valuations should be and to equalize between districts. If you wanted to do a sales ratio study of the districts the townships that no changes were done, we can go back and look at their sales. We can carry out a sales ratio study of those townships and see what percentage they are. Now, granted, there's not a lot of sales that happen in the townships. In the last 2 years,
We had a double-wide trailer house in Sverdrup Township assessed at $143,000. Ron Hegvick's house in town here sold for $257,000. Really?
Well, the purpose of equalization is so that no matter what mill levy is applied, regardless of valuation, that it is fair to everybody involved. If you have properties that are not assessed equally throughout a taxing district like we're having right now, you're going to end up with some properties that are paying far more their share of tax than ones that haven't been assessed. So the question is, what are we trying to accomplish as a board here? Do we have problems with revenue in Griggs County? Do we have problems with people not paying their fair share? I don't think so. The process is tried and true, and the way it works out is public input. If someone isn't paying their fair share, it always gets brought up. It doesn't get. Right now we had Sverdrup that went up 249%. Why would anybody want to have property in Sverdrup when they could have property in the adjoining county that didn't raise at all?
Can I speak to that?
When I quit. So what's the purpose? How are we going to equalize? Do our job of equalization? So you're saying that our job of equalization, that is to raise those properties to the same value that you have assessed these properties. That's your,
If you believe that's the market value of the property, I
no,
think.
it doesn't say market value, it says
It does.
equalize.
True and full value. All assessors and boards of equalization shall place the values of all items of taxable property at the true and full value of the property. So there's not a consideration of how much taxes is someone gonna need, there's not a consideration of how much revenue the county's gonna bring in. It's a purely, what is the market value of these properties?
So we have different market values.
And you have one that, you have districts where we know that the assessor did not do anything, and we have districts where the assessors went out and did something.
Mhm.
If your goal is to have as little property tax as possible, then throw out all the changes, but I think that would be disregarding century code of how properties are to be valued.
And what were your duties as a tax director?
I promote uniform assessment of all real property in the county.
Okay.
But it's not uniform.
Yeah, because local assessors like Broadview Township do not go out and assess property. Would you
They
agree?
didn't do it, right?
Yeah, they didn't do it.
So how do we equalize it if everybody didn't do the same thing?
I mean, a starting point would be to look at the sales ratio of townships where where the assessors did not do it, and carry out a sales ratio, see where those townships are at. I don't think that's been done. So,
Gene, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no, yeah.
Yeah, well, Township Equalization Board, without question, thought that our values had been ridiculously low because the previous assessor wasn't interested in changing them or doing the research to find the current value. He did a terrific job here of finding actual sales, and we're really satisfied with the way it was done. They've just been way too low. We know that.
Why? What's too low?
What do you mean? It's based on actual sales price, and that's what he found.
yeah,
What's the what's the outcome of raising the
We're
tax law?
following the requirements of North Dakota law, I suppose.
No, what's the cause and effect, Gene?
I don't know what you mean.
So we raise these valuations by 240%. What
Then
value does it have?
240% too low, because there had been no changes made for years. We don't feel at all that it was wrong to raise them 240%, because they were 240% too low, following the rules and requirements.
What will happen because they're higher?
Nothing.
Yes, it will.
Well, what do you mean, more taxes? Of course. The amount of taxes that go up is minuscule, 1%, I think we said.
it's not a
50,000.
criteria for like in terms of what evaluation should be. You're not supposed to look at what are the taxes going to be. That's not a consideration of what
According to who?
an assessor.
That's according to the state.
We don't work for the state.
We're elected officials, we are responsible to the citizens, and I'll bet money that if we ask the citizens, they're not gonna vote to have their taxes raised. You gotta realize who you're working for here.
Here, the reason I asked,
Taxes were following previous requirements that have not been followed,
but you're raising taxes because
because the previous
no,
requirements have not been
just hear me
followed.
out, Gene. Because the state gets 1 mil, the Garrison Diversion gets 1 mil, the library gets 4 mils, the hospital gets 5 mils, the school takes the maximum no matter what the mill levy is or what the valuations are. So everybody's taxes go up based on the actions of that change.
We had no protesters at our tax meeting, not one. Correct, Dave? Not one.
I mean,
Everybody thought it was fair.
when
and
we
not
send
one.
out the notices, I put my personal cell phone on there. Encourage people. I'm a reasonable guy. Someone came to Ball Hill. We talked about his house. It was older than I thought it was, so I'd underestimated depreciation. We came up with a reasonable value. People are always you deal with local matters with your local officials, your local assessor, your local township board. That's where it starts. I'm not an approachable guy.
I guess I look at this a little bit like, I don't know how many townships we have off
20.
the top of my head. but just say that there's only 4, just for ease of numbers. I look at it as when we had to reassess Cooperstown, had you divided Cooperstown into 4 quadrants and done this quadrant this year, this one next year, this the next year, this, okay, so you're doing the same with townships. We only have 4 townships, so you're doing this one this year, next year you're gonna do this one, the next, that. You're gonna have 3 quadrants off from what's true and correct because you didn't do it all at once. And you've got townships that haven't been assessed correctly for years and years and years, so their values aren't what they should be. And I guess I look at, we haven't been,
That's tax
mine
equalization.
hasn't been reassessed. I know that's equalizing, yes.
Tax equalization director's
But I'm
job
looking
is to
at-
make those recommendations to the board. But
But if you don't
it's not
have the
been done.
assessors to go out and actually measure the properties and assess them correctly, they aren't done, like Broadview or whichever.
What are we trying to do? What's the
Make
goal of
taxes
this?
equal, because in my township, I don't wanna be paying lower than what I should be either. Do I wanna pay more money? Not really.
Right.
No. But by the same token, if just say my home then, or my farm is assessed at $20,000 right now because it hasn't been assessed for 20 years, and I want to turn around and sell it, I want it to be assessed what is the true value. Maybe it's 80,000, maybe it's more. I mean, I'm
Tax
just pulling numbers out
tax
of
assessment
the air.
and assessment for sale are 2 different things.
I know they are,
And
but
the higher the assessed value, the less you're gonna sell it for
That.
because it has a tax burden.
I don't look at it that way, but.
Well, that's
Minnesota's a prime example with all their lake property, where they taxed that till they ran the value down. Anywhere that happens, but so what does this prove? We still have the ability to levy more mills to achieve more value into the county. Whatever, we're not broke, we're making ends meet. All this is going to do is make this thing unsettled. It's going to be, some townships have a lot higher tax value than other townships, because the township equalization board for those townships that haven't raised their value believe they're doing the right thing.
Dale just said he knows his values are inaccurate.
I don't know that we did the right thing. Our assessor didn't provide us with any new information, so we did nothing.
Nevertheless, what do we do here? The other thing that's really skewed here is the people making decisions on these things. It's pretty easy to make the decision to raise someone's valuation when it doesn't affect you.
No, most people are doing what they're bound to do a good job.
I don't
They
see
don't
your
think
name
that
on it.
way.
I don't see your name on this list, Gene.
For what?
Raising the valuations of your home.
No, so what?
He's a farm residence exempt there. at
My
201,
point,
yeah.
it doesn't make much sense if you're able to raise valuations to tax somebody else when it's not affecting you either.
If it isn't equal, then the entity that's taxed low is not doing their job. They're unequal with the ones that are doing it right, which may be higher.
You can raise the high to the low and it does the same thing.
Say that again and try and make sense.
Okay, so if you have someone that is valued real low and you have someone that's valued real high, right now, everybody wants to raise to the highest level.
No, they just want it to be accurate. That's not at all true.
If you raise it to the lowest level, it does the same thing. You just have to raise more mills. You just have to tax more mills.
The commission is not raising taxes to the patrons in the county through this process. They would raise taxes by passing more mills. They are simply trying to match, to do what the proper thing is that has not been done for years.
Gene.
So the commission is not doing anything to raise taxes.
Yeah, of course. If a property here is worth more than a property here, that means 5 mills here costs the taxpayer more than 5 mills here.
And it should, because one is worth more than the other.
The same property, just valued differently.
They should be valued correctly.
That's the point of equalization, Gene.
That's the point of
correct.
equalization. That's
They
why.
should be valued at what they're sold at or appraised at.
No, that is not correct.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Chairman?
Market changes. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're wrong on that.
Anyway, the wild card in this whole thing is that we have people come from the Oregon coast, the west coast, coming out here and paying big money for some of these properties. And then when you look at the back on the what they're selling for, you know, on the tax rolls and stuff, we got this, well, you saw that, David.
Yeah,
You
so
know.
we have an example.
Yeah, for example.
And just because someone from out of state buys a high priced property, that doesn't mean as an assessor you raise it to what they bought it for.
So you raise the whole township then, if that happens?
Well, what do you do with that?
That's what you did.
That's a wild card. My point is this: what do you do with that number that's high? How do you figure that in there? You follow me? You know, you got a number that's really out of whack. How do you justify that?
Dude, let's penalize people for coming here. We have a very rural place. We're trying to get people to come here, but yeah, let's penalize them for coming here.
Well,
let's penalize. Let's.
Not all sales are qualified sales.
No,
You follow my point. Is
You
that
take
I don't.
out-
Well-
You take out sales that you don't think are,
A representative.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's 17 different items that can
Yeah.
reduce that
Right.
sale. So what was wrong with this? What was wrong with last year? So you're saying then that last year we went through the equalization and somehow someone was slighted?
Yeah, there was no underlying data to support what, what the
No,
values
someone was
were.
slighted. Who was slighted? What happened? I mean, what caused harm? What's the purpose of government?
What caused harm? Because you have your 1.5 million that you levy as a county. That's going to come from somewhere, right? That's distributed according to residential land. It's distributed according to ag land, according to commercial land. If you have houses in the township that are not at their market, hypothetically, if you have houses that are not at their market value, you have houses in Cooperstown that are at their market value. You have ag land that is at the value set. If you have you're forcing your residential people in Cooperstown, you're forcing all your farm owners, you're forcing all your commercial properties to pay more of your county bill when you have underassessed property in your townships.
Bring the overassessed. How do you know it's underassessed? Maybe the property is
look at-
overassessed.
Because when I go through all the sales that I can find, maybe 1 out of 10 is the sale greater than what the assessment
Who's
is.
in charge of the well-being for Griggs County? Is it the local citizens and the elected officials of Griggs County, or is it a state entity that wants more and more money taxed so they can have the value of the state higher so they can borrow more money?
The state is not telling anyone to make any sort of values at this meeting. I am a local official.
Wait a minute. Maybe I missed something.
Eggland value?
Eggland.
Maybe I missed something
The
here.
whole point of what we've been discussing in this meeting has been residential
You said any
property.
values. I see the state is requiring or trying to require us to raise values.
Okay, I'll say residential property.
Sure they are. They're requiring it by using some silly assessment value.
We're required to set things as what we believe market
Okay.
value to be.
I'm
Can
gone.
someone explain what happened to Steele County? Is it true that they had the state come in and it cost $300,000?
They had an independent, I'm sorry, they had an
I'm sorry?
independent, I'm the managing editor of the Steele County Press,
Okay,
so
yep.
we covered that
Help us
story.
out.
They had an independent assessment company come in and, because they weren't able to get things together at the local level, and they came in and they raised valuations by, in some cases, as much as 500%. And there have been a lot of protests and upset people there.
And that's
for that.
because the local people hadn't done anything?
No.
That was part of it, yes.
So if the local people had done their
Hadn't
job,
been
this would not have happened. and
They wouldn't have had to call in the
$300,000 been spent.
independent, they wouldn't have had to call in Vanguard Assessment.
But Vanguard was here in 2011.
They
Vanguard.
did
the
that
city
in
of
Cooperstown.
That-
No,
and-
not the
Right.
township.
Right, but this was for
The
all
city
of,
hasn't been
all
assessed
steel
for years.
this time.
So how come they did the county commissioners hired them?
I'm sorry?
The county commissioners hired them?
Yes.
The county commissioners hired Vanguard here in an effort to
The
boost
city.
valuations
This-
in
I was just
possession
answering the
for.
question.
Yeah. No.
No.
Vanguard did it here. In an
In
effort-
town,
The city.
The city.
just in town, not in the county.
But
Not in
They
the
also
counties.
did,
But you
they
were
also
correct.
did rural properties too.
They did too, yeah.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
They did Jim Anderson's, I know, and Gary Barber's.
Yeah.
but it was not a great, in steel, it was not a great situation when that happened.
No.
People were very upset.
They ought to be.
Absolutely.
But a part of it was commercial property owners, especially, because now all of a sudden, like for example, the people that own the building that we're in, the Steele County Press building, now that building is valued so much more than it's worth. They feel uncomfortable with that.
Did this all happen because the local people had not done their job?
It was part of it. I mean, like what's happening with you, yeah, it's similar, where values hadn't been assessed in a long time. So when they did finally get assessed, they went,
which could
I've got
happen
a
here.
question for you, Gene. So if Spear Drip goes up as a whole, in David, I've already talked to you about this 3-4 times, but so Spear Drip goes up, you can't adjust the mills that go to the hospital, library,
School.
school. So
State.
what you're doing, what you just
Garrison
did,
diversion.
you really are taking advantage of me. Because now I gotta pay higher taxes to those mills that these guys can't adjust. So I am very against what David's doing, because it's not fair. And it has nothing to
Is your
do.
outfit assessed too low then? Is that why it's
Pardon?
not fair? Is your outfit assessed too low then and not accurately? That's the problem?
No, there's no advantage doing what he's doing.
The answer to the question, is your stuff assessed too low, meaning you think this is too high? Even though this is accurate?
We'll forget about Spear Drip. What's another township?
The problem with, if you take today and say, okay, we're gonna raise this to whatever the sales values are today, the market is the market. They might go,
How would you
when
like
do
this
they,
to
when do
end,
they go
you guys? How do you
down?
want it to end? Do nothing?
Well, we have to have equalization somehow. How do we get to equalization if we have some townships that we feel are overvalued and some of them are maybe, I'm sure my house is undervalued.
Oh,
That's fine.
okay.
The difference is the townships that, there are no changes, we have no data to, there's nothing to go on.
Okay, so here's the end result.
Well, there's a
Maybe
sheet
this'll
for
make
every
Gene-
residential
this'll-
property.
this-
Chicky
this'll
came and
solve
looked
your-
at my house when I built it.
Okay.
He has these, I asked him, there's no more information about there are no property cards for Washburn Township. I have
No.
no idea how the residential values were come up with.
Okay, Gene, here's the fairness part of it. So, say we didn't take any of these changes into effect, and we just used the values from last year. When we turned those into the state, when the state came to equalize Griggs County, they would raise the values overall in Griggs County in order to make them equal with the rest of the counties in the state, thusly making it fair. It isn't a dollar value that matters. It is the properties equalized fairly amongst themselves. And the dollars don't make any difference. The state is eventually going to come in and raise those values anyway. You're gonna get what we're gonna achieve what we want to achieve. Everybody's gonna be paying their fair share.
Would you rather he doesn't do anything? He doesn't have a job, or what do you want him to do?
He is
What
a
do you- what
tax
do you want him not
equalization
to do?
director.
Huh?
He's a tax equalization director of Griggs County,
Yep.
isn't he?
He is.
So equalize.
So then,
So but we have 6 or 7 townships now that are way higher than the rest of the townships.
it doesn't make any difference to me.
That's not equalization.
Somebody's done a poor job in those other townships, period.
This meeting here used to be, we go through every township one by one. And if the people didn't like what they got assessed at the township level, they were here and objected. That's what this meeting used to be all about. It wasn't about equalization going here and there and all over.
Well, it wasn't right, and we can't
You gotta
equalize
trust
it.
your equalization director.
We can't equalize it unless they're equal. How can a property in one township be worth 2.5 times more than the same property in another township? David can answer that, it can't be.
That's all in how water
As I
works.
said, the difference, one
Listen,
township, the
we have-
assessor did their job, the other assessor, the assessor sat.
But you're saying they're not equal then, right?
Absolutely, and so if you want my honest opinion,
But I mean,
why don't you raise it to a level where you know
You use
where the
the
assessments
comparison
were
to
reached?
but they all gotta do it.
We've got a house in Dover Township that if you took a picture of it facing north, it looks perfect. It's a real nice modern house.
No, you don't.
If you took a picture the other direction,
I know.
here sits a
I know
steep line
that.
right
I know.
less than 200 feet from the house.
But David just said that they're not equal.
Alan.
Now we have properties that aren't
Nancy has a
equal.
question or
So,
comment.
Gene has a house in Sverdrup,
Yeah.
older home. Just say neither township has been assessed for years and years and years.
Yes.
And then I own my home and we like tripled the size on my home.
Yes.
And now what you're saying is then the state should just come in and just equalize, raise a certain percent on everybody across the board.
They will.
But that's not equal and fair, because my house is 3 times bigger than the size that it was originally assessed at, and that's the assessment you're going on.
So why not lower
So
your
that's
house so
why
it fits the
everyone has to be assessed every year.
Gene's
So
egg
we
is
have
exempt.
Townships that haven't been assessed for years and years, maybe they have doubled or tripled the size of their house. They should be paying more. I should be paying more. than Gene. If his house is a small house in this other township. How do you, that's what has to be corrected.
That's what the
But we don't have the
assessors.
ability to correct that.
Yes, that's what the assessors are
Did you
supposed
say
to be
good
doing
job?
yearly.
The assessor, it's not his job.
No, it's not him,
It's
I'm
not
saying
his
the
job.
the assessors in townships.
It's not his job, the assessor's job. It's not his
But
job.
he was an assessor in
Those
townships.
townships.
Townships,
We
correct?
don't have the ability to tell those assessors in those townships that they have to raise valuations.
But he has the ability to tell those assessors they have to do their job.
No, he has the ability to
Tell them to measure with the same.
no.
Right, exactly. Measure with the same ruler.
We're only talking about houses that are not ag exempt.
Right.
Not everybody pays taxes on their houses.
Yeah, I know, but
Okay, the county tax director of equalization has the power, duty, and responsibility to call upon and confer with assessors in the county and to assist them in preparation and proper use of land maps, property records, preparation of assessment books, changes in assessment value, and so on. He doesn't have the authority over them to say you must. That's the problem. We have this in front of us. We're supposed to equalize it. How do we equalize it? I'm open for options. What do you do?
You listen to your tax equalization director. That's who you listen to.
He didn't equalize them.
He equalized them to best of his ability.
No, didn't do any
He
equalizing.
didn't do any equalizing. He assessed properties in the
He
township.
assessed 7 townships, but he
He
did not.
assessed ours.
Yeah, but he did. The 20 townships need to be equalized. That's the rest of his job.
Well,
He-
that's their problem.
No,
our
it's
problem.
our problem, Alan. That's
No,
the
it's their
point.
problem.
No, it's not.
We're here representing our townships right here now. Where are the rest of them?
But
There's plenty of them.
So the townships assess, right?
Pardon?
The townships assess.
Yeah. We hired the bid.
Yep. The county equalizes amongst the townships.
I don't see where you come up with all that stuff.
From the century code,
I've been
Alan.
going to these meetings for a year and I've never heard of that ever. You're supposed to go through here township by township, the bid is. And have any objections to what he done? He raised or lowered? And if there is no objections, you accept it.
no, that's the first part of it. Then you're supposed to accept, now, David, correct me if I'm wrong, we're supposed to accept the valuations. Then we're supposed to take those evaluations and equalize amongst the townships in the county, correct?
I've never
Yeah.
done
I mean, if you want my honest opinion, what to do to equalize the townships that were not properly assessed, either carry out a sales ratio of those townships, or or compare them to the townships that were where you know the property data was collected, and you compare them and you equalize to the townships that were properly assessed, accurately assessed.
So your recommendation is to raise everybody's valuations?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think the market value is, and that's,
Yeah.
as century code assessor, you make an estimate of market value. You're not to take into consideration how much more or less taxes are people gonna pay. I don't like the fact that I raised Spurgeon that a lot of people are gonna pay more taxes. That's not my end point. That's not my goal. My goal is to make an accurate determination of market value, and it's up to the township board to accept or reject it. Some of the townships made adjustments to what I'd done. Some accepted them, and that's how township equalization occurs. There's not.
So you want to force all those township officers, equalization boards, to impose more taxes on the people that they're supposed to be representing. And you want the county commission to forcibly raise valuations, which will raise taxes on all the people we represent. Do you understand a representative form of government?
It's a distortion of what.
There's no way in the world.
No, what I'm asking you to do, the commission, is to raise the values to what you think market value is. It's not about how much raising taxes on property owners. It's about discovering what the accurate market value is of your property, and that's what Century Code asks you to do.
What year did Vanguard come into the city?
11.
11.
Well, you'll have to vote me out of office, because I'm not voting to raise anybody's taxes. So you'll have to get rid and get the petition started now, and I'll guarantee people are gonna say, no, they don't want their taxes raised.
Not one in Sverdrup protested.
So Gene, do you want your taxes to go up 248%? Are you willing to be involved in that?
If it should be, if I haven't been assessed properly, yeah.
You're not assessed at all. It's pretty easy to make a decision to raise other people's taxes.
But Gene will pay more. I'll pay more. Any landowner in Griggs County will pay more by what you're doing. Because if you could adjust all the mills,
No, actually, it's
if
like,
you could adjust all the mills, it wouldn't matter what you did, because these guys could just make it right.
Mm-hmm. That's the
But
point.
we can't adjust those mills. You get it. I know you get it.
yeah, I understand there's frustration with the fixed mills, but that's not a consideration when you're trying to determine what the true and full value is.
Well, I
You're not-
protest what you're doing as a landowner.
But you as a landowner are paying more because there are under-assessed residential properties. You as a landowner are forced to pay more of your property, the county property tax bill, as a result of properties that are under-assessed. You as a landowner pay more.
You as increasing a township will make me pay more because
As a
we
landowner,
can't-
no.
Yes,
No.
because you can't.
That is not
change
true,
the
David,
mills.
because the ag land is assessed separately from the residential. You can't say that he's paying somebody else's taxes, that's not true.
No.
No, I'm saying he's paying less as a portion of it. If your county's at 30 mills,
It won't matter. It won't matter. The ag land is valued completely separately from the residential, so don't try to make that argument, it's not true.
That argument can be made for these valuations you raise. The people that have a raised valuation now are gonna be paying someone else's taxes. Correct?
That makes no sense.
Gene?
Yes.
No.
How,
Yeah.
you take a mill against the assessed value of the property.
a landowner is gonna, so the person with the increased
Answer my
valuation.
question, answer my question,
Yeah.
so that Gene understands this.
Yeah.
When we
Tom
raised the valuations, that person is gonna pay more taxes. He's gonna pay more than his share of taxes compared to the valuations that didn't get raised, correct?
So as a landowner, Tom is gonna pay less.
No, I'm gonna pay more on every acre because you can't change the mills for the school. You don't get it, David. I think you need to be schooled, so you get the system.
Help us understand why you pay more if our assessed value goes
You
up.
can't change the mills. Do you get it, Gene? I'll sit down with you and explain this to
I
you.
don't think I want to.
So mine went up in Addy Township quite a bit,
Doubled.
and I am a landowner, and I live on my land. And they doubled. One's an old house built back in the 1900s probably, which I put new siding on and a couple new windows.
Yeah, but that's
And that
maintenance.
doubled the value.
That maintenance,
When you asked the township board to make a reduction on it, and they
And I
did.
guess they did, but I
Yeah.
wasn't there. I had something else
So,
for that evening.
new shingles shouldn't double your assessment. That's
Huh?
maintenance.
Yeah. And I shingled the roof of my house. It was shingled in 1999. Prior to that, I did that last year.
But that should not make one lick of
That shouldn't raise
difference.
your bid. That's, I mean, so again, all I gotta ask, what is the purpose of us doing this? What is the benefit to the citizens of Griggs County by raising valuations? That's how I look at it. I'm not scared of the state. They've come and tried to discipline us before. I think that we have the right to govern ourselves. I think we have enough money in order to govern ourselves. I don't think we should unjustly penalize people for wanting to live in the country. And I really don't believe that people that aren't affected by the raises we put in place should be making those decisions. Let's have the assessment board of people that have residential property, that have some skin in this game.
I mean, it's advertised, there's mailed a notice of increase, there's township meetings that they can go
You have
to.
to realize that over the years, people have been told no, and no, and no, and no for generations, and everybody knows it's to no effect.
I mean, I've been very approachable with, again, we talked about Ball Hill, a guy came, talked it out, there are things I'm not taking into consideration, we come up with a reasonable value. It's not,
Again, how do we equalize given the figures you gave us?
How much did you change it?
it was at 134, it came down to 109.
It was still 1,000% increase on that property.
Like
After-
1,200.
After he changed it, it was still 1,000% increase.
Yeah,
on that
after-
property.
Because you're starting at
That's part of the
$10,000.
negotiation. That's
Because
part
you're
of the
starting at
negotiation.
$10,000 valuation.
House, really?
And a house was assessed at $10,000, you're starting at $1 and raising to something you think is accurate.
No, I understand that.
You understand basic math.
Fairly well.
So maybe we should be promoting people having residential homes in Griggs County. Maybe we should be lessening their tax burden. Maybe
But not
that's.
but not by putting it a value that you believe is lower than the market value.
Why not?
Because that's what Century Code says. We assess, shall place the values of all items at the true and full value of the property. That's, I mean, I don't like it, but you come up with a different system, but that's what we're bound to.
It says we must equalize.
State's attorney, what do you, how do you interpret equalization?
Well, it's not very hard to figure out what the word equalization means. We have to have equal taxes across the county.
Right.
And we can't have a 240% increase in one township and not have an increase or decrease in other townships.
But in the other townships, they had not been doing their job. We got our job done now.
But what are the commissioners supposed to do in that situation?
I'm sorry?
What are the commissioners supposed to do in that situation?
They're supposed to tell the assessors for those that are too low, go do your job correctly.
That's not our job.
We don't have the authority.
Well, then you should quit fussing.
So if you put yourself in these guys' shoes, and their job is to equalize taxes, and they see Speardrop Township with 240% increase, and the rest of the townships with a 0% increase or 50% increase or whatever, why wouldn't they say, well, maybe Speardrop is wrong, and we can decrease it down to 50%? I mean, their job is to equalize taxes throughout every township throughout the county. So if that's an outlier, what makes that assessment correct?
What makes the assessment correct is that I and the other assessors that made changes, we went out and gathered the property characteristics, we made assessments based on that. The difference is that the townships that made no changes, there was nothing done.
It's still opinion.
Oh, but what about the ones that did make, what makes those incorrect? Maybe there was no changes to make those.
There might be, but there's no data to support that. It's a number in our assessment book, and we have no way to.
So I think we should try to shoot on the low side and have equalization within the county. And if the state wants to equalize us with another county and they raise the valuations across the county of rural residential properties to meet the rest of the state, I'm just fine and happy. But I don't want to be the average setter in the state. I don't want to be the county that lifts the whole state. That should not be our goal.
I mean, I think there's a misnomer in terms of the board here with state equalizing between counties. When the state meets as an equalization board,
that's their job. Read the Century Code.
When they equalize,
they don't do it.
Allow me to finish. When the state looks at what a county is at, they don't compare Griggs to Steele, to Nelson, to Barnes. They look at the sales ratio that was conducted within the county, using sales within the county. They don't compare our sales to Steele. They don't compare our sales to Foster. They don't, in terms of equalizing between counties, that's misleading because the state doesn't look at county to county. They look at the sales ratio that takes place that includes only sales within that county, and that's what they base their equalization on.
No, that's not correct, because there was a number of years when we were the county commissioners and we didn't have a tax director, there was never that information provided to them, and they still raised the evaluation of Griggs County. So that's incorrect by practice. The other thing that you mentioned the assessors. You know what the highest 7 increases in the townships were? You know who the assessor was for those?
Myself.
There you go.
So Farrah didn't do her.
I'm not trying to hide what I've done here.
Farrah didn't do her job.
Farrah could yeah. I think Farrah could have made more increases. Yeah, I think Marlon Haugen could have made more increases if he had gone out and gathered details on the property.
They didn't do their job.
Correct.
But it also makes it difficult for the commissioners.
I have a hard time believing Farrah didn't. She changed the value on 47 properties.
Well, when David says that when the other assessors don't do their job, then when one person doesn't do their job, and
what if that one person is David?
In order for you guys to do your job, that person before you guys has to do their job. So in order for to work out correctly, that job would had been done before in order for you guys to do what you need to do.
If we could back it up a year, as Alan said, it went pretty smoothly. What's the common denominator in making this go on smoothly?
Mr. Sefferberg under their saddle.
Not really, Gene. I don't think I do.
He's trying to do a good job, period. Anyway, how do you want it to end?
Well, it can't end.
We can't take action because these townships aren't equalized.
What do you want him to do?
I don't know, his job.
Pardon?
His job, he's the equalization director.
So at this point, the
Did you take an
townships,
oath of office?
Yep.
So, yeah.
He'd be violating his oath if he goes back down.
If you throw out all the changes that were passed at the township board believed at the time of township equalization that was the true and full value of their properties. If you're deliberately throwing out those changes, you're disregarding what they believe to be true about the true and full value.
What's the inverse of that? Raising the values on boards that believe that was a true and full value.
Yeah.
Well, so it's okay to disregard one group's opinion in favor of the opinion that you are in favor of? That doesn't make any sense. The group that didn't raise valuations believed they were correct. Would you say that?
Assess Dale.
no, I don't believe that our township was correct, but we had no data to go on, so we took no action.
That's right.
Because we believe some should have stayed where they were and some should have came up. And at that point, you can't change them unless you've sent notice.
And at this point,
If it's over, it's only if it's over 10%.
Yeah, well, we didn't feel that 10% was enough for some, and we didn't want some to go down. We wanted to equalize, not raise
Right now, we're in the
everybody.
same exact position.
Same
Yeah,
position. At
yeah,
that point,
so-
we can't.
So we sat on our hands and hoped that our assessor will do
Right.
better next time.
I mean, if you want to suspend the meeting, and I'll do a sales ratio for the next meeting of what the townships that weren't assessed, and I can come up with a recommendation of equalizing those townships. But I would not be in favor of throwing out the changes that Cooperstown Township, that Spurdrift, Ball Hill, Addy, the other townships that made the changes, I'm not in favor of.
Well, Willow and Rosendahl I would like to address because I don't think those lot sales were qualified sales. And you just took the valuation from before and added the lot cost in there.
No, I subtracted from the lot value. I didn't take strictly what was reported on the deed. I recognized that it was a forced sale, and that I talked with property owners, and that it was take it or leave it. So no, I didn't take exactly what the deed price was.
I thought I saw that on the
Well,
paperwork.
coincidentally, the property sold for $3 million. About $500,000 of that was commercial property, which isn't included in this.
No, it's right now on the property tax rolls talk about $500,000 of commercial property right now. The Red Willow commercial property is assessed at $29,000. So,
After assessment, okay, so,
you
raised the residential property by $2.5 million. So it was very close, to the selling price of the property is what you raised it.
fairly close. I mean, I do. There's in the grocery store. There's a grocery store. Someone's trying to sell their cabin right now. I can guarantee you they're asking a hell of a lot more than what is on the assessment right now.
Again, why are we penalizing people for patronizing?
You can
rich
ask
money?
whatever you want. That doesn't mean you're gonna get it.
No, but when we see sales come through,
Has there been any cabin sales up there?
in most cases it's been right now because prior to the sale of the land, there's only a handful of sales that were recorded in the county because it's land prices that wouldn't have been recorded on a deed.
Right.
So there's only a handful of sales where like there was a quick claim deed and the person set the cabin on a piece of ground and it wasn't all like it wasn't a full legal description of those deeds. I mean, if people start selling their homes on Red Willow and these assessments are too high, I'll lower them. I'm guaranteed that I'm trying to come up with what market value is. If those are too high, lower them. If they're too low, if sales are coming in at a lot of what assessments are, then you raise them. You have to keep what the market is. Troy, you talk about what the market is doing. You have to track that.
No, you don't. We're trying to promote life in Griggs County. We're trying to make life better for the residents of Griggs County. All different places, when they want people to move into their county or move into a zone, they lower property taxes. We do the same thing with farmers. We give them zero property tax on their residents because we're proud that they're willing to live in Griggs County. Why shouldn't we do the same thing with anybody that's willing to live in Griggs County? The citizens should be able to decide how much money government is going to cost them. Government shouldn't be able to decide how much it's going to cost them. The citizens should. This is the cart before the horse. And you can say that you have to do it because the state said this or this or this. The end result is we live in a representative form of government, and we're supposed to do what the overall will of the people is. And I'll challenge you to find the majority of the people that say, yep, raise my taxes.
If they had people would have come to township and county. If they
No, because it has never served their purpose. I've never been able to accomplish anything. Their grandparents or great-grandparents, it's always been the same. It never works. So you can hide behind that and say because people aren't protesting, it means they're fine with it. That's not correct. That is not correct. And again, that we have people voting for this, assessing properties, and they are not subject to the same assessments that they just put in place, is really a little bit absurd to me. The least they could do is recuse themselves from that decision. So I vote to raise the property values, the residential values in my county by 250%, realizing full well that it's not going to affect me at all. That's a pretty easy decision. And that is a moral decision that somebody should look at before they do something like that.
Well, I didn't mean to be immoral. I thought we were just doing our job.
Well, you weren't paying attention. And you weren't paying attention.
I don't think anybody is being immoral.
Well, would you vote to raise someone's taxes when you weren't doing this, when you didn't have to experience the same? I sure wouldn't.
We just voted that he did proper value on it. If the taxes happen to go up, you guys can lower the taxes. You can lower the mills, can't you? He's just doing his job, putting a value on it.
No, the point is, Gene,
we have to equalize it, Gene.
If we are bound to equalize between the townships and 7 of them go up 200%, what are we supposed to tell the other 13?
Somebody didn't do their job in that township.
There are 4 other townships, like Cooperstown Township, Addy, Bryan, and Kingsley, that made changes. It's not just 7 out of 20 that went up.
So maybe we should shoot in the middle then.
I mean, if you want me to come up with a recommendation, I will.
I mean,
you might not like it, but I'll come up with an estimate of what those other townships that did not have.
Can you guys override him?
Yeah, he works. Okay, well, works. Yeah. So I'll give you
leave him alone and do what you want to do.
I'll give you a. Well, we want him to do his job. He's supposed to help aid. He's supposed to aid and equal. No, he does his job as an assessor, not an equalizer. You're missing the point, Gene. He assessed a township. His job as a county tax director.
I'm sorry. The assessing is separate. Okay, that's his own deal. Thank you.
So Pilot Mound 6.2%, Bartley 3.7%, Helena 8.8%, Clearfield 37%, Speardup 249%, Broadview 3.5%, Romness 1.3%, Lenora 5.4%. Greenfield 1.4%. Ball Hill 210%. Cooperstown 30%, but that's just a third of the increase. They voted to implement this over 3 years, so they're almost 100% increase. Which, by the way, that can't be done. It has to be. You can't do it that way. Tyrol, as Troy said, changed 49 properties and only increased at 9.8%. Bryan, 45%. Mabel, 234%. My favorite, Kingsley, 0.0%. Dover, 45%. Don't know which one this is.
That's part of Rosendahl. Or
Oh, that's, okay, that's Rosendahl, 21%, which was a big number, but not a big percentage. And Addy, 228%. So I'm all in favor of averaging them together and doing the average, but you don't want to do that, do you?
I mean, if you want to do an average of the increases and then apply it to the non-assessed properties, I can give you different scenarios. Let's just have a meeting and revisit it next week, but and if you want me to come up with a recommendation, I will.
I'm just not comfortable going that far for everybody else.
No, I'm not either.
Because they thought they were right too, or they thought they were closer than. I mean, I don't know. That's too much shock to me.
I mean, I think
I won't do it.
So you talk about 2019 versus 2000. You could probably buy a decent house for $30,000 in 2000. That same $30,000 isn't gonna buy you the same house in 2019. If property values had gradually tracked what the market was doing, if Sverdrup had gradually tracked what their market was doing, and slowly reached to 2019, we'd get to the values that we had today, and no one would be raising a squawk. The difference is, Sverdrup values are stuck at 2000 level prices. They haven't changed for however many years. That's why it's the sticker shock.
Our assessor did not want to know.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
It makes a difference for the percentage increase that you're talking about. That's why it's a sticker shock.
No, it doesn't
If all of a sudden
matter.
you're used
It
to
doesn't.
paying-
It doesn't matter what those assessments are.
No, because if you left them what they were last year and the county needs money, all we do is levy more mills. They had to have been equal last year and the year before and the year before, even though they're all low. Even though they're all low, I mean equal amongst everybody.
They were all measured the same before.
In the sense that they weren't measured at all, because again, as I brought up with you, all there is right now in our county software is a value and what the true and full value is. There's no, I mean, they could have put numbers in a hat and drawn them out, thrown them in a dartboard. You have no idea how those values were reached.
I'll ask it one more time. What's the benefit to the citizens of doing what you're trying to do?
There's consistency across the board.
There was consistency
You're trying
before.
to reach an accurate market value. If you want me to come up with values,
That doesn't have any value though.
I
Reaching.
think what the commissioners are trying to say is that last year, all property tax levels were equalized.
Correct.
They voted that they were equalized. And now from 2018 to the 2019 levels, the few counties, they increased 240%, and the counties, there's other counties that increased from 0 to 10%. How come those values are that much higher? How can they go up that much higher in 1 year than the rest of the values? That's what they're trying to get to.
No, they're unequal.
Yeah, you certified last year that that was a true and full value of every township you did. You certified it, you wrote your name there, and you said this is a true and full value. And now all of a sudden you say, no, I made a mistake. They were 240% too low.
There's a case like Dale where you don't feel like it's quite right, but you hope that at some point the assessor's going to fix it. I mean, I had no data, underlying data. I joined less than 2 years ago. Had some of the fall months to get used to my county responsibilities. It reaches January, February when I realized that I'm not able to arrange for local assessors for other townships. You know what North Dakota is like in February, March, April. When you're forced to do the assessing for 7 townships, and to be fair and consistent to those people in the townships, you don't want to just isolate 1 or 2 and increase their assessment for Sverdrup. I waited until I had time to gather all the property characteristics of all the houses in the townships. I didn't isolate just 1 or 2 last year to increase over last fall and summer. So when it came time for consistency within Sverdrup Township, I could say I wasn't singling anyone out there for an increase.
Now you're talking township level compared to county level. you certainly did isolate Speargrove Township on a county level, because now they're way an outlier compared to the rest of the townships. You're getting mixed up with what your duties are as an assessor and what our duties are in the form of equalization. So, if the state thinks this is out of whack, they can raise valuations of the county, correct? If we left things exactly like they were last year.
Yeah, right now the county is at 86.1%.
Right.
Usually, it's typical practice amongst the state board to raise within tolerance of 93%. You're supposed to be with 90% tolerance. They typically, if a township is below 89%, they raise it to 93%.
No, a county below. A county below.
County, yeah. So if the commission doesn't do anything, if we believe, say, Cooperstown, where they have Vanguard software, they have all the underlying property characteristics, if you know those are accurate, if you allow the township, throw out all the township changes, you get to state boards, the state's gonna see that the whole county is out of compliance, they're gonna raise everyone across the board, across the county. Meanwhile, if city of Cooperstown was at an accurate level, they're gonna get raised 7%. And I don't feel like that's fair to residents of Cooperstown versus out in the township.
Maybe you should probably lower the valuations in Cooperstown. Equalization goes both ways.
Yeah, but actually for the city of Cooperstown, their sales ratio for 2018 came at 85.5%. So if it was just isolated Cooperstown, their values actually, from when you compare their sales to what their assessments are also below market tolerance of market value.
So you say raise everybody's taxes,
I'm saying raise people's valuations.
which is the same thing.
Who benefits from that?
Me. I still get paid the same by you as the county.
Man, we're just getting all mixed up here. We're talking technical, what the state wants us to do, and in a representative form of government, we're supposed to be what the people would favor doing. This is not that difficult. And we're picking on a very specific group of people here, the people that don't happen to be farmers that own property in the country. I think that's grossly unfair. Grossly unfair.
I mean, if
I'm one of them. By the way, I'm one of them. I have the highest priced home valuation in Griggs County.
Yeah,
I'm not complaining. I'm not saying lowering it. I'm just saying quit picking on everybody else.
You assessed that township, didn't you?
Yeah.
Is his house worth that?
No. If there are Rosendahl and Willow have the two highest number of non-farm residence exempt properties.
Yeah.
I didn't make any changes to the residential structures because again, there's not time as a local assessor to. So yeah, I mean, I think yours is too high, John.
No, I'm not arguing for that, but I wasn't going to bring it up.
But you're talking about
raise
picking on
valuations.
people. There are people here that live within the city of Cooperstown. Sam, Mark, Mara, Sean, you live in town. If you were to tell them that there's houses in the township that are valued at $10,000, I don't think people in Cooperstown.
That's a different class of property. That's why we have classes of property. Because they're not supposed to be valued with the other properties. Same as at Red Willow, you shouldn't be valuing the outlying homes in Willow Township with the properties at the lake because they're a different class of property. You didn't do that, by the way, but you should have. And you said you didn't have time at Willow to do that, but I don't see where you lowered any properties at Willow. You raised a whole bunch, but you didn't lower any. So you had time to raise but not lower? You just admitted there's one property that was too high.
In order to make I made changes to the land valuation. I didn't make any changes to the structure valuations within Willow and Rosendahl. I have for land valuations, I had surveyed out. There's on Dave Hopendick, it's at the county. You can see what the lot sizes are, where they are. So I had that data.
Again, I'm not arguing for a reduction. I wouldn't take it when I'm in my current position. But again, it goes without saying, I have the highest valued home in Griggs County because of a spat I had with the prior county commission. I haven't changed it because I didn't want to draw attention to it. But the very fact that you overlooked that and raised other people's valuations tells me this wasn't exactly an unbiased look at property values. And I can't argue with the facts.
So, Ron Hagwick's house sold for $257,000. Is there a higher priced house, higher true and full value in Cooperstown than that?
I don't.
What was his value?
I mean, I think his was in the between 200 and 250. I think his and like Mark's and some down by the golf course. How do you call that? They have an exemption currently.
Oh, that's
So I think like 200. I mean, for houses in Cooperstown, the highest range is between 200 250.
So could there ever be one worth more than that out in the country where you have to provide for all your own services?
As I said, I mean, if John would allow people into his house and gather the data to be able to make a proper assessment, it would probably come out lower.
John, I'll make the same recommendation to you that I did to some of the guys that were at our equalization. God's sakes, don't let them in the house. No. I said it only gets worse when they come in the door.
Look at his evaluation.
Yeah, I know it.
I think there's so many discrepancies and we have one assessor involved in almost all of these gross raises in values. I think common sense says that we throw out the highs and go with the ones that are what we've had for the last 50 years. We always see a little bit of a raise, but we don't see 250, 220, 400, I mean not 400, but we have 1,000% raise on one piece of property after negotiation, for Christ's sakes. It was negotiated down to 1,000%.
You know, the only issue,
I mean, the
only issue, excuse me, the only issue I'd have with, in our township, of just going by a straight percentage, is that I know that there was one individual that was really close to where they came in at. And they weren't raised. And if we go with a percentage, they would be.
I don't think we should go to percentage.
In Cooperstown Township, it would go down.
It'd go down.
Well, from where it was already been done. But you see, they were never raised.
That's because
so if we went for the last
they just
years,
bought that place a few years ago. That's why it is where it is.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I am not very comfortable doing a 240% increase on the whole county just to equalize at this level.
Yeah.
I would like to see us equalize at this level. Yeah, my house should go up. Chicky hasn't been there since I finished the basement, whatever. But there's a limit.
And when they appraise non-ag real estate, the road that comes in is a modifier. You know, how the access that you have, the age of the home. I mean, there's lots of different modifiers that go into.
I don't know. I just know what I'm a long ways off the road, and I know what it appraised for 10 years ago, and I bet it hasn't gone up.
Probably not.
So
probably not. But how do we? You know, like John's saying, how do we?
We got to
equalize.
That, David, you got to tell us how we equalize.
Sales ratios?
Yeah, if you want me to carry out a sales ratio of townships where there were no changes, we can look.
You can't go reassess the townships.
What are
They
you
did.
asking me to do? Like you're asking me to equalize. I'm trying to come up with an idea of
Equalize
what you're
between the
for.
townships somehow.
Troy, who's got, I was chairman, of course, of our township, you know that.
No, I don't know that.
Well, anyway.
Whatever.
So, who's got the final authority on it? We voted for our increase in our township. Now, is it you guys have authority over us?
Well,
You follow me?
we're supposed to equalize.
I know that, but what we decide at the local meeting, is that, you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. Can we lower what you
Yeah,
said?
that's what I'm saying.
I don't know. Yeah, I think so.
Well, Jamie left, so.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Yeah, that was my question.
That's the job of the tax equalization director and the tax equalization board in the county.
Okay.
I think there's one solution. It was equalized at the end of last year. We have those values, I think.
I know
the
what
value
your
should be
opinion
this
is,
year.
John, but
I'll be the first to stand up and say, damn it, I voted not to raise taxes.
I know.
And if somehow that became an unpopular position, then I'm living in the wrong damn country.
So, I think we should recess this meeting and David's gonna have to come back and help us equalize.
I'm trying to come up with ideas for you.
I know.
But his method of equalization is to raise taxes. I'm not,
Well, you can vote no.
I'm going to.
Okay. Fair?
Can,
But his goal is to put the true and full value to make it accurate, and that isn't accurate in all places, and that's our whole problem.
Well, we might have overshot it in some places, Dale.
Well, exactly, that's what I'm
True and
saying.
full value is just an opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're gonna have to equalize the opinions.
Yeah. Cause I know in my own township, the values are all right for properties that have been sold recently, and there's some
Right.
data, and the others were farm properties they just tossed a number on and
Yep.
said, there it is, it's on the books.
I think we should exempt all residential properties in the county. I think that people living there are doing the county a favor by living in our county. I think we should praise them for that financially.
Except for you can't.
if you can, you're gonna force all your landowners to pay more.
Hmm?
You're gonna force all your landowners and your commercial properties to pay more.
No, it would force those properties to pay the same as the landowners are paying.
If you exempt all residential property in the county, whatever you levy as a county for your property taxes, your landowners are gonna have to pay more.
And I think the opposite is gonna happen. The opposite is gonna happen.
What's that?
I think that farm exemption is gonna go away.
Well, when it does, I bet we don't have these huge pushes to raise valuations on properties in the country. Because now we'll have a uniform people that are voting to cut their own throat. Pretty easy to cost somebody else money.
Anyway, we can't, I don't think we as a county equalization board can approve this the way it stands
I
because
move to
there's
recess the equalization.
I'll second that.
been moved by Sean, seconded by John to go into recess on the tax equalization board until further notice. Is there any discussion?
Can we go over there's some changes that, say in the case of ones that were torn, there's some properties that were torn down, that we weren't made aware of at township or city equalization. There's a few where property owners bought it from a city, and so it was exempt when it was city property, and it needs to have some, it can't be exempt anymore. If we wanted to go over those, or if you want to save it till the next meeting. There's a few cases where when I made my recommendations there on the different townships, you'll see where there's outstanding business.
They're on the individual sheets?
Yeah, page 53. So say, for example, City of Cooperstown, CMC owns a property, that little blue house across the hospital. That property was torn down 2 years ago, and it hasn't been cut until I had a phone call. I'd recommend that you take off the residential structure kits. Right now they're being taxed on something that doesn't exist. Same thing for the Derek Anderson. That was Raleigh Retzlaff's mobile home. They tore it down. That wasn't cut at city equalization. I'd recommend that you take that value. So if you want to save those until the next meeting, but there's some of the cities and townships that have outstanding business.
And I see there was a couple properties that were added that were never on the rolls also.
Yeah,
in Tyrol, I think I saw a couple of them.
There's one Rosendahl where there
we had one too.
there's some that if they were farm residents exempt and they no longer reach it. In some cases that was caught early on. Other cases, so like Rosendahl, that Haynes was the Haynes family, their farmhouse previously they had a farm laborer living out there, so it was exempt as farm labor. Now, one of the, like, you wouldn't say one of the kids, one of the, Bob Haynes lives there now. When he goes back and forth, that's what he communicated to me.
Really?
So when I raised, like in previous years, that's been farm residence exempt. I brought it up to the township board. They said, no, that shouldn't be exempt. So I'd be proposing putting that value.
You want us to act on these right now, you mean?
I mean, county equalization would be the time to do it if the township said that a property isn't farm residence exempt. Obviously, if they're seeing that at township equalization, the next appropriate time is at county equalization.
So, I have a question. I don't think you covered it. So the city sales ratio is at 85.5% of what?
Of what their sales were. Of what, when you compare their sales to what their assessments were, they're at 85.5%.
What does that mean?
That means the properties are valued at 15% under what the properties that in the sales assessment that were sold, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's
And you want it to be 90?
I mean, in general, you want to be within 90% of market value. I'm not proposing raising it to 100% of market value.
No, I saw the 4.5.
Yeah.
So that, if you don't do that, the state will ask you to?
If we don't do anything right now, the state will increase everyone across the board, across county, your townships and your city. They would likely raise everyone about 7% because they'll raise it to 93.
They've never done that. They say that, but they've never done that.
And we can go
Did
back.
did the city commission, did they see these numbers or vote on these numbers?
Oh, I'm sure they did it at their equalization meeting, yeah.
You did?
Well, I'm
So
sure.
you're aware of these numbers?
I was just curious. I mean, this is the same thing that happens to us with the egg land values, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Go on
if the city, yeah.
But
the, our assessor.
that isn't our job.
Suggests.
Oops. That
And
isn't
that
our
was approved by the city, this increase?
No, there's no changes.
No,
Yeah,
the
other-
sales ratio, they knew was 85.5.
Right.
Okay.
So
We have a motion on the
just-
table here, guys. We should probably finish it.
Okay.
Motion is to recess. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting is in recess. Reconvene the meeting of the county commissioner. County property.
In your packet.
We have a letter from the city, signed by Nancy Lundy.
Who's that?
Call Cody and tell her to bring a sandwich, I'm gonna be hungry.
No, you're not.
You stay right there.
Thank you, Mara.
I did have Jamie's office draft up a deed for us to do this,
Perfect.
if you guys do approve it.
This is that Trosted house, they call it?
Yep.
Do-do-do.
Yeah, exactly.
City would like to purchase lots 17, 18, 19, and 20 of block 37, the city of Cooperstown, that was deeded over to the county due to taxes delinquency.
Nancy's Cooperstown planning the next acres of there.
Yeah, acres of terror.
No,
Uh,
no. They tear it down.
What, didn't we approve this last meeting?
No,
We talked about approaching them and see if they would.
We had-
If they would buy.
we
if they were willing.
needed to ask the
They
city.
were willing.
And then I brought
if-
it to me.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't force you to take it, you had to
Yeah.
request.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we wanted it mowed.
So not to throw,
Well, that's how it came up, because we'd kind of forgotten about it. That's
not
right.
to throw a fly in the
You guys
ointment.
mow it or?
Roger, I'll have it done in
We'll charge
20
for it.
minutes.
You did.
When we
That's
sell
right.
the property for $1 back to them, does that
Yeah.
go into the sale ratio also?
I think that's it. We said
Didn't
we mowed it too.
It's an exempt sale.
It
The
should.
day I called you, I called Roger and said, go ahead. So,
I move we sell the city lots 17, 18, 19, and 28, block 37
To the
for
city.
$1.
$1 a lot.
It's just $1 a parcel.
Quarter a lot.
20 cents, actually. Yeah, 20 cents.
There's 4 of them.
5.
No, it's in block 37.
Oh, block, yeah, okay.
Check, your math is
Fancy?
questionable.
I thought 37 was a lot.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mark. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
Will you be abating?
Oh, yeah, I do need
Yeah.
a motion to abate the
Yeah,
taxes for
Taxes
the
have
4
to be
years.
abated first.
I'm assuming.
So that motion should say, sell the lots to the city and abate the taxes for the last 3 years?
Yeah.
4, 3?
Connie said 4.
Abate the
It's 4
taxes,
years.
period.
Yeah.
Abate the outstanding taxes.
Correct.
Amanda.
Then we'll come back and abate the specials.
Right. And in order to sell it, the specials have to be worth as much as the value of the property, I believe, so you can put that in motion too.
What?
In order to do it correctly, the specials should be, the specials that the city had against property, that's the reason you're selling, is because the specials are above what you believe the property value is worth.
No, I think we're selling it because they haven't paid the taxes for 5 years.
No, but the reason that you can sell it to the city for $1
Oh,
Because we didn't get $1 as a
okay.
is because the specials are more than the property value.
Should we start over?
Go ahead, Dale.
Well, just don't nobody seconded it yet, have
I
they?
think I did.
Yeah.
We can
You
amend
did
it.
second.
Dale can amend
So
it.
okay.
I lost track of what needed to be done.
So you just need to say, I would like to amend my motion by adding whatever
That's the
Nancy
part that I'm
and
missing.
Nancy-
Well, I'm mad.
Nancy. That we abate the outstanding taxes
Okay. I'd like
and that the property, the specials against the real estate is greater than the value of the property, right?
Yeah.
Got that?
I'll get it if I can.
I so moved.
I heard you say that.
Is there a second to that
I'll
amendment?
second it.
Seconded by Mark. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Amendment is added to the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion as amended? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries.
Gosh, thanks.
Congratulations.
Really happy. Thank you.
We paid $1 and get to spend about a
And
couple
I get to
thousand.
mow it. Yes,
Thanks, Nancy.
thank you.
Audit.
Harold gave me some information about, for the 2018 audit. So if you guys are good with that, then he can go ahead and get the rest of the audit approved.
Oh, completed, you mean?
Yep, yep. With the rest of all the wording and all that stuff.
Anybody see anything in this audit that you didn't like?
A couple of things.
The road fund?
Well, there's just, we're gonna have to address that eventually, but we need to, lost my audit. The next time that we get money,
It's the last 3 pages in your packet, I think.
yeah, but it fell apart.
Yeah, me too.
The next time we get money for the prairie dog, we need to put that into an email account, so we don't end up with what happened here. You know, we're carrying $1.5 million because of the way we dealt with that money coming into the account. We originally put the whole amount in, 3.2 million, and then we only spent part of it. Then in order to be able to levy the 30 mills, we had to have an expense, so we put the 1.5 in on the top side as an expense, but then the balance, the 1.7, came back to us on the bottom side as carryover. So we overinflated the thing by 50% is what happened. We didn't have that money. We'll end up spending the $3.2 million, but it will show up as if we got 4.5 million or 4.7 million.
So all that needs to happen in ledger is just have an account for it, so it will show up under the road and bridge.
And from here on out, as Wayne recommended, we have we have a road bridge fund. And the proof of that is we did real well in the road fund. The revenue for 2018 was $1,161,000, and the expenses were $1,008,000. So we cash flowed it perfectly, but we're still carrying that 1.5, which is a fictitious number. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot. The regional corrections is way over.
And I did talk to Harold about that, and he did recommend that we do an amendment to that.
Yeah, we will have to.
Yeah.
We got to amend any of these that ended with a negative balance, but that one, also the county agent, because we were using money that had come to us, and some of the other ones that have a big balance, the emergency fund, that's just because we roll that is actually revenue money. Social services, that's kind of fictitious. That's not even there anymore. It's out of our.
Yep, that's all. Yep.
And wireless fund doesn't seem to really do with that. So overall, it's the only difference is our cash. Let me see yours. The cash balance at the end of the year was a little bit lower, but that just could be circumstance of how the collections came in.
And when I did up the budget to distribute to the department heads, I did use the numbers that I had, and it does balance with Harold's numbers, so that was a good note too.
So the total fund equity was 18 was $3 million, 17 was 3.1 million, and 16 was 3.1 million. But that could very well be on a slower tax collection because we collect the previous year's taxes prior to the end of the year. So nothing much changed. It just won't stay even. I don't see anything else when I looked at it.
Okay. So Harold can finish that up for us.
Okay.
Engineering pool. I don't remember what we were doing there.
You asked Jamie to look into that about you guys getting a engineering.
Oh yeah. Did you look into that?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Is there a process, or what do you do?
Just correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the request for proposals and
Prior approval. They have to prior approve so that they can all bid and that sort of thing on the project.
yeah, I mean, request for proposals on the project and I mean, we have to advertise for request for proposals for engineering and establish that pool, and for each project, then we have that pool. I mean, it's fine, but we have a pool of engineers. So I think what we need to do is just advertise for request for proposals for engineering services for Griggs County and interview engineering.
Whoever's interested.
I don't know, I guess in the past, I know that we've only had KLJ interested, I'll take this here, and here's that they're interested in future projects, maybe the pool will be Alteg and KLJ.
Right.
When you guys have done in other counties, what has happened, I mean, what's,
So there's a couple ways that we've worked in the past on engineering pool selection. You can go out through your RFP for engineering pool. And then from there, complete your, your interview process and really what you choose, select how many counties you choose to work, or companies, whether it's 2, 3, 4, whatever. And from there, you can either direct select engineering firms for projects. We go out, I've done with counties where they go out and they interview each firm for a specific project. Generally, what kind of works the best, the county identifies a capital improvement plan. Doesn't need to be anything set in stone, capital improvement plan just kind of outlines, here's roads that we know, maybe they need some sort of maintenance addressed on in the next 3, 4, 5 years, whatever length direction we'll look at. At least from there you have a kind of a set list of projects that you know about. Not saying that it's set in stone necessarily, you can always address a capital improvement plan at any point, whether it's every 6 months, every year. Projects move up the list, projects move down the list, just based on what happens throughout the county. But that's kind of a basis to start with in terms of, where you look to start awarding projects, as funding comes in. So like I said, the way that you go about selecting firms for a specific project is really up to you guys as far as how you want to do it. You can go cost-based, you can just direct select a firm and work with, work the center fee on that. You could interview for each one, you could request a proposal for each project if you wanted to. It's really up to you guys as far as how you guys want to go about it once you have that pool created. In order to meet century code requirements, the only part that is needed is the actual advertisement for the pool itself. That's century code.
Both firms, I guess, have you guys both been involved with pools? Have you guys, in the western part of the state, Paul, have you guys been involved in the pool system?
I think so. I guess I haven't personally because my stuff is.
You have been in the same pools we've been in.
Yeah, I'm sure. And the same thing with Fargo does the same kind of thing.
Exactly, Fargo does that as well. So.
Yeah. And I think Ward County, I think does some of that.
Yep.
I guess as far as the advantage versus just advertising on a per project basis, I mean, I don't know, there's a whole big difference. I mean, you guys are advertising for anything that's got federal aid in it currently.
Is there a disadvantage to it?
Not that I'm aware of.
The only thing that I can think of that, maybe would put a little bit more burden on the county by doing it that way is that you've got to have somebody that's gonna put together your projects and have enough in it to be able to, say if you're gonna request quotes from engineering firms, you're gonna have to know what goes into that project, and it would be a kind of a conflict of interest for either the firms or any of the pool firms to help put that together, because then they.
Again, that's kind of where the capital improvement plan comes into play.
Okay.
You could RFP that out separately from the pool as well.
Mm-hmm.
And even with KLJ, we're the one to win that. Once that capital improvement plan is prepared, if a pool is established after that, it would be fine to do too. But like I said, generally that's what we've dealt with. Again, Fargo, a lot of western counties use that, a lot of western cities use that as well. Just as a way to kind of avoid the hassle of going through the RFP process with every project you want to go through.
And what he's talking about an RFP
Yeah, no, I know
project.
what he's talking about. It's just contrary to what when we do that, when we are bidding on a project like that in the federal system, that's involved with the proposal, all the preliminary work, and if we don't get paid, if we don't get the bid, we don't get paid for it. That's a that has to do then with how we're evaluated. And I'm not saying that this is supposed to be that way, but so there's a project coming up, and I would put a proposal forward saying, here's what has to be done, here, and here's the quantities and everything else, and then the next group would do that, and the next group, and then the people letting the contractor would look at it and say, well, it appears like they have a better understanding, and certainly they have a better price, we're going with them, or these guys have a pretty good price, but I don't think they understand the project because their quantities are off and the whole scope of it's off, and even though they're cheaper, we're going to somebody else. So I understand what he's saying. I don't know if it has to be that way. And legally, does it have to be that way?
So to me, actually, what you're saying is, actually, when you go back to the old, I mean, we wouldn't have a pool, we would just advertise a request for proposals for projects.
You have the pool, and then the people in the pool, in order to earn the work, would be vigilant in proposing, in keeping you astride of what is coming up and what's available.
So
No different than what a single contractor does right now. It's just it's just somebody wouldn't be assured of the work. Someone's gonna lose out.
So basically the interview process over again is what you're saying.
Well, we're gonna do that
The
anyway.
biggest benefit that most municipalities see to a pool is, competitive pricing and
Right.
everything. Once you select one engineering firm to do everything, I'm not saying that, anyone just goes and jacks their rate up, but you're always gonna be more competitive if you know there's someone else in there that you might be competing against. Not always the best outcome for engineering companies, but again, it gets, using public money, it gives the public the best use of their dollar.
I would equate this to issuing basically a contract to all of them with no guarantee of work, and then putting out task orders.
Yep, I've been in pools, 2-year selection pools where there's no work, and we don't, maybe one project comes out and only one firm gets it, it's a possibility.
And then you bid the task orders that come out of
If you
it.
bid it and you're not the lowest, that's the outcome that you may face.
That's the system I'm used to, whether that works here or not. Doesn't matter.
You'd have to go through the interview process like the LJ did to get into the pool, I would
Right.
assume?
That's the way in the.
Yeah, that's how you set them up.
Right.
So you're pre-approved and then everybody bids.
You pre-qualify a group, and then you don't have to go through that whole interview process and making sure they're qualified. They are qualified. Now you can name what you want in order to pick. So you can say, okay, price is going to mean have X amount of points, time, whatever else you want, or it can be strictly price.
And that's, so we're adding extra elements to what the state requires by doing this, because the state's requirement is that we hire an engineer based on the experience. So once we get to that pool, we're already to that experience point where they're all at the same level. So we're adding another qualification that now we want them to show, or we want them to do it in time and matter, that sort of thing. So we're going above and beyond what's actually required by statute, but it should be beneficial to the citizens.
Absolutely. So, do we need a motion to have our road department and our two that have the road department in their portfolio interview?
You'd have to put out a request for proposals.
Request for basic engineering proposals, and then we don't have to just pick one, we can pick whoever we deem is responded, yeah.
So if there are 12 engineers that apply and 10 of them are qualified, we can choose that entire pool of 10 that's qualified, and then they bid each project in the future. And so if we want to make the qualification in the future price or time and price, then we don't have to, they're all qualified, so we don't have to do that.
Yep.
So if they're all in the pool, will they all have to put a bid in, or can they opt out of bidding on a project?
You
We're
don't
gonna
have
be
to
in a
bid.
situation where we
You don't
don't
have-
have any bids.
There may be a situation where no one bids.
Yeah, it's possible the project comes up that it's something one of the firms wouldn't be comfortable doing, they don't have to submit a bid.
Or do we have to put it up for bids every time, or can we just select one of the pool members?
Well, I shouldn't, and in
You
our,
can
in our
purchase
system.
land from a pool if you choose.
Yeah.
City of Williston does that specifically, Williams County does that specifically, a couple examples. They go out to a pool and they direct select, basically if it's a road project, this firm would be.
So it doesn't limit our.
No, it doesn't really limit your opportunity,
You've met this, if you have a pool, you've already met the statutory requirements by the state.
Yeah.
Because the statutory requirements by the state are that you base your selection of the engineering firm based on qualifications instead of any other,
Right.
any other criteria.
From there, it gives you the ability to choose how you would like to select your firms, whether it's price or direct select or whatever you wanna do from there.
You could say,
Time schedule.
you could assign them a number and say this project goes to number 1, this
Yep.
goes to number 2, it goes to 3, and so forth. The additional criteria past the qualified pool is up to you guys, but it has to, of course, be applied fairly. But whatever you guys choose beyond that portion is up to you.
Well, I don't think any of us are corruptible, but it just makes sense to bid it in price.
Well, it's the only thing that has any value to the taxpayer,
Is
because
the
we don't
price.
have so much work that we need to have, timely execution on this stuff where
Right.
it matters. Where like the city of Williston might wanna get something done tomorrow, but
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
firms can't provide until 6 months from now.
That's,
That's- Well, you can
weight
those criteria too.
Yeah, you can.
And have more than one. You can have price be 50% of it and schedule be 25% and, a handful of other things.
Yep.
Or have price be 75%, whatever.
Well, if you're careful in the selection, and you only select firms that are ultimately qualified, then you shouldn't have to, that should be the end of it. They should just be down to the price.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't care about schedule at all,
Yeah.
Well, then they wouldn't put in a bid if we decide what we want to schedule and at this time and.
Oh, you can set the schedule, prior.
We can set the schedule prior.
So we've advertised for RFPs, but nobody has applied. Why? Except one.
Well,
Yeah.
want me to answer?
Yeah.
They'll call it professional courtesy.
we
That's just a real neat term for, we don't wanna step on anybody's toes. And professional courtesy goes out the window when there's not enough work to go around.
Well, I don't know if that's really, I don't stay out of a county just because somebody else is working there. All firms look and see, do we have a shot at even winning this work?
Yep.
It takes us a fair amount of effort to put a proposal
I
together.
just said that was my opinion.
I
Yeah.
can speak from
Supply and
experience
demand.
that we've looked at county work, this one in particular, and when the last proposal came out, we didn't have the manpower or the time available. With changes that we've made internally, we have the manpower, we have the ability, that's why we're going to have to talk to you, you have an engineer. But again, it's not gonna stop me from talking to you guys, knowing that we have the capacity to serve you guys.
Yeah, if everybody's got more work they can handle, there's no need to go looking for other work.
So what are your wishes, guys?
Yeah, so what do we gotta do to make a pool? Or?
Set out an
I don't
RFP
know.
for engineering services.
Okay.
Now, are you guys, is KLJ already pre-qualified?
Well, there's no MSA yet. We don't, all of our stuff is individual projects right now.
Oh, okay.
I would say
So
that
there's no conflict there.
I think that we have to put everybody on a level playing field. I think, if we're gonna advertise for RFPs, we're gonna have KLJ coming in.
Okay.
Like I said, this isn't something we propose if you did have an active MSA, because that would be a violation of your MSA, so.
Well, actually, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I guess we did, the MSAs, or at least the ones we use, aren't exclusive.
Yeah.
It's just a
It's
convenience
possible.
that you
This
don't,
depends how the
that you
county
just do
wrote
a
the
task
MSA,
order instead of a
Yeah.
E520 contract.
Yeah.
It just shortens up the documents is all.
So we just use an RFP using the basic standards that the state puts on us contractual wise.
I believe so, and I can get a copy from Williams County or McKenzie County, and one of the ones that they've used in the past looking for their engineering services.
Okay.
It might be worth talking to DOT at least, or Brian Fuchs and local government or somebody like that for, at least for federal aid projects, whether or not he could still do that or if those have to be individual.
I think that's our consensus, that we wish to form a pool for engineering.
Well, let's take a look at the agreement or whatever they got, and then we'll make a determination.
Okay.
I don't think we can do anything today. Okay. So you're gonna get some stuff from Williams or?
Get some stuff from Williams and
Williston, I think.
and speak with the DOT.
Okay.
And that wouldn't necessarily mean that it's not a good idea, it would just mean that those projects.
Right.
Yep.
Who's gonna talk to Brian Fuchs?
I
Wayne?
can do that.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. Old courthouse, new courthouse?
Letters out to the Historical Society and back.
Yeah.
I haven't heard back from that lady either, so.
Okay.
Future business?
Uh,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I just noticed that the time clock thing wasn't on the agenda.
Because I was, we got information,
Okay.
but I told her to leave it off because I didn't know how long that equalization meeting was gonna go.
Okay.
Okay.
That
Very
works
good.
So
for
it'll be
me.
on next meeting.
Okay.
No,
Good.
no, I don't. I just need a copy.
Right, Samantha?
That's all I need.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm sorry, what was that? What did you say?
Time clocks will be on the next agenda.
Time clocks will be on the next agenda, correct?
It's right around the corner.
The mail people get a hold of you?
Nope.
Okay. Anything else?
And the next meeting, you guys will start budgets.
Oh boy. Got everything in?
Uh-huh.
Got everything in?
No, I don't have that, I don't have anybody having their stuff back until June 14th, that's when I asked for them back. So then that'll give me a week to get everything put in and ready for you guys for that Friday.
How do you think that process is gonna go?
I hope this process is gonna go very smooth.
Kinda like today?
I hope a lot smoother.
Me too.
But everything, like all the numbers have come out to Harold's numbers, so that's great. I put in the budget amounts and those all come out correctly, so we're doing good there. So I think we should be pretty good.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Been moved by Sean, then we adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mark. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Next meeting.
Next meeting date will be June 21st at 2:30 PM.